Home Secretary believes other countries will follow the UK's Rwanda asylum proposals amid reports of a civil service backlash over the plan.
Good morning to you. It's 6 o'clock on Saturday, April the 16th. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Anne.
We're live across the whole of the UK on both your TV and your radio.
And coming up for you this morning, Priti Patel says the government's plan to send illegal migrants to Rwanda will serve as a blueprint, despite reports of a row in the Home Office. This, as the UN's refugee agency says, the proposal breaches international law. So, is the plan dead on arrival?
The Duke and Duchess of Sussex will both speak on stage at the Invictus Games opening ceremony later today, just one day after the couple's first public appearance in Europe since quitting as senior working royals more than 2 years ago.
An Easter sizzler. The UK set for warm weather ahead of Easter Sunday after experiencing the hottest day of the year so far yesterday. We're going to be live in Skegness for you right through the morning.
And you can join in any of our discussions, of course, by emailing gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet @gbnews.
I'm looking forward to a bit of a sizzler. Well, on Monday when I'm not working.
Yes, exactly. I know. It was such a lovely afternoon yesterday.
Gorgeous.
The sun was streaming in through the window. So what did I do? Instead of going out and enjoying it, I fell asleep on the sofa.
Yeah, it's understandable, though.
I know, but you feel you've wasted an afternoon in the sun.
A little bit. I did go and sit out in the garden for a little while. Went for a little walk and then sat out in the garden.
Yeah.
So that was quite nice.
Did you have a lovely day yesterday? I'd love to hear what sort of day you had yesterday. Did you enjoy the sun anywhere, or were you stuck in a queue somewhere? Love to hear how you spent yesterday and how you're planning to spend today, because it's going to be quite good weather today, isn't it?
Should be nice today. But it's all about whether you're going to head off somewhere and do something a bit grim or, as in stuck in traffic. I've got to say morning to Danny, who's travelling from uni in Swansea back to the family in Dorset today. Morning to you, Danny. I'm worried I'm going to get caught up in the madness today, but at least I'll be listening to you guys on the train.
Yeah.
Well, good luck, Danny.
Will do, yes, absolutely. In fact, haven't we got something from somebody who's just set off? Or I think they're setting off any second now.
Sam.
Oh, there's Sam at the top there. He said this, and we received this about half an hour ago. Sam says, "Hi guys, I'm planning on taking my family to Monaco for a week. We're setting off in a few minutes. We don't want to risk any queues at the airport after the images we saw yesterday. We're hoping it's a stress-free day. It's good to get going early."
Fingers crossed for you.
Love Monaco.
Oh, I've never been.
Oh, it's just beautiful. It makes me want to cry. It's just absolutely gorgeous place.
Oh, right.
Yeah, even though you're full of envy because obviously the harbour is full of these incredible yachts. But it's just such a beautiful place to walk around and lovely shops. And they're not all expensive. Some of them are really nice. And I love Monaco. Good morning, Monaco. If you're watching us from Monaco, do get in touch. Have you seen the moon? Have you seen the moon?
Oh,
The last 2 days, the moon has been terrific. And this morning, ages ago, as I set off for work, the moon it's a full moon at the moment in a completely clear sky, and it's got like a blue halo around it. And I think that is what they call a blue moon. There's always a reason for
There's a reason
the
for blue
haze.
moon, but I don't know what it is.
I can't remember what it is.
We have blue moons and blood moons.
That's right.
And all sorts
well,
of
this
things.
one, I think, is it a blue moon where you are at
moon.
the moment? Have a look out the window and see. and Dan, Sam, if you're on your way to Monaco, God bless. I hope you get there smoothly. And I hope you're listening to us as well on the car radio.
Yes, quite right too. Now, let's run you through the top stories this morning, or the main news anyway. Home Secretary Priti Patel thinks that other countries are going to emulate the UK-Rwanda asylum scheme, noting that Denmark could be amongst those to reproduce the blueprint.
This all comes despite the UN's refugee agency saying the plans are a breach of international law.
Well, the UNHCR is accusing the government of shifting responsibility and evading international obligations.
Downing Street, however, says migrants who arrive in Britain unlawfully could be sent to the East African country within 6 weeks.
Now, it's a scheme that's costing £120 million just for the pilot. It's going to target single men, as they apparently make up the majority of the more than 28,000 people who crossed the Channel last year.
Yes, Priti Patel reportedly took a rare step of issuing a ministerial direction to overrule the concerns of civil servants about whether the concept will deliver value for money.
Well, let's talk to Dr. Greg Mills, former strategic advisor to the president of Rwanda and director of the Brenthurst Foundation. Good to see you this morning. Lewis, what's your assessment of how this is going to work? I mean, particularly with your experience, the benefits or otherwise, perhaps, of what this could mean for Rwanda?
Well, I think it's a highly transactional response to the refugee crisis in the UK, and essentially you're putting the responsibility on another country. Now, the problem here is that Rwanda, while it has a very good record at development and a very good record at relative economic prosperity, and it's an accessible place, at least for foreign visitors, and something of a favorite among certain sort of rock stars in the aid and development industry, it has an appalling human rights record. It ranks with 22 points out of 100, for instance, on Freedom House's index on political freedoms, which puts it in about the same space as Russia, for instance. Now, you wouldn't be sending your refugees to Russia to see them catered for and cared for. So why, you would ask, are you sending them to Rwanda? And I think the answer is simply that the Rwandese are willing to have them, they're willing to process them, and they're willing to do so because they're getting £120 million in return. And it seems, I think, frankly, a way of shifting the blame to another place, to another country, or shifting the problem, should I say, rather, and rather than having to deal with it at source. And you really, to deal with the refugee crisis, and particularly the refugee crisis from sub-Saharan Africa, which is responsible for most refugees in the world today, not most of those coming to the UK, by the way, but you have to really deal with it at source. And dealing with it at source means essentially improving the political conditions in the countries that are supplying these refugees to enable the economies in turn to ensure conditions of prosperity.
But even if there was a concentrated effort to do just that, it would take time. And I guess Priti Patel needs to deal with this migrant problem at the moment, straight away. The deterrent value, surely, of knowing that you could, if you try and enter Britain illegally, you could be sent to Rwanda with, as you said, a very dodgy human rights record. Doesn't that just increase the deterrent value?
I'm not sure if it does. I think people are probably, the push factors on refugees are probably great enough that they will regardless take a chance. I mean, these are people fleeing terrible conditions, whether they be terrible economic conditions or political repression. They probably suffice to push them to the UK or to somewhere better in Europe. And I think the hazardous nature of the journeys that they're willing to undertake is an illustration of that desperation. So I'm not sure if the possibility of them ending up in Rwanda will be a deterrent. I think it's just simply shifting the problem elsewhere on the part of the UK. And I do think there is a moral question here, which is these are people who have obviously fleeing conditions, and they may just be in search of a better life, but certainly a safer life. And then essentially you're putting them into a place whereby they may not, in fact, be experiencing the conditions for a better life or a safer life at all. And I really don't believe it has a deterrent value among people who are this desperate.
Oh, it's going to be interesting to see, isn't it? But I mean, why do you think Rwanda has been picked for this? I mean, it is. I mean, certainly regarded in some respects as pretty ruthless, but I mean, it's a pretty efficient country, isn't it?
Yeah, Rwanda's always been a pretty efficient country. Even before this particular regime, it was always seen as one by the donor community that was well run and squared away. But I think it's been selected because it is so accessible. It has become something of a donor darling, a bit of a celebrity amongst donor ranks. And it's become a strategic partner in that sense because it's supplied peacekeeping troops around the region, most recently further south in Mozambique, for instance. It's seen as a very efficient place that is well run. But it's not well run on standards that I think the UK and its voting public would recognize. It's run on standards of authoritarianism, And I think the reason why it's been selected here is A, because it's accessible to outsiders, and B, because the UK and in particular the Conservative parties had something of a special relationship with Rwanda, going back at least 15 years. And I think that the Rwandans, of course, want the money. They want the international interaction. They want the diplomatic protections that this offers, in spite of their political system at home. And it suits them. It's a highly transactional relationship in that way. But I do think you have to ask, does it make the problem go away of refugees? Does it make the source dry up? And the answer is no. And over the long term, I do think you have to ask about what sort of political and ethical behavior are you encouraging in Africa if you're willing to do deals like this with a regime that is patently unfree and unfair in political terms.
Okay, Dr. Greg Mills, good to talk to you this morning.
Yes, thank you very much. It's interesting, Dr. Greg there was talking about the voting public here and what they will think of it. Of course, the May elections are coming up, and it will be interesting to see if this particular idea is a vote winner or loser. Certainly, Stephanie, thanks very much for getting in touch, says, I think the government is talking about illegal immigrants going to Rwanda now because the May local elections are coming up. So they see the policy is a public vote winner. After the election, however, it will all be swept under the carpet again.
Well, we shall have to wait and see, won't we, for that one. Dan says, a great move by Boris and Priti to introduce offshore processing. Now, this will in time save money and prevent deaths. A Brexit success. Typical Starmer and the lefty media being outraged at something that the majority of the public want, taking back control of our borders.
Helen says, I think the Rwanda deal is great. Personally, I think it should be made clear. Come here illegally and without documents, you will be automatically excluded from ever applying for asylum and will be taken straight to the airport and sent on.
Julie says, perhaps those who say it's inhumane should look around the UK and the deprivation people are experiencing here, which is only getting worse. We need to get our own house in order before bringing those people who are not asylum seekers but economic migrants into the country.
And Robert says, I suggest giving foreign aid to Rwanda rather than India and China. Money well spent.
Well, keep your thoughts coming through. GBviews at gbnews.uk. I mean, it certainly gets people talking.
Yeah, I think it will probably. I think it'll be seen as a vote winner. I really do.
Yeah, I tend
people
to
want
agree.
something done, and this is at least a try at achieving something. I think that the Tories may well find that this is actually encouraging their voting. We'll see.
It's the deterrent thing, though. I'm going to be. I mean, Greg Mills saying it. Well, acts as a deterrent. It'd be interesting to see.
It will,
won't it? And it's a pilot scheme.
It does seem harsh, I think, because you're dealing with human beings, and that's why it feels harsh, just sort of shipping them off somewhere with a dodgy human rights record. But is it actually going to achieve? Is it going to achieve its purpose? That's the test, I suppose, isn't it?
OK, it is 6:13. Let's bring you up to date with the headlines today. And as we've been saying, the Home Secretary says other countries could follow the UK's Rwanda asylum plan. Priti Patel made the comments despite reports of a civil service row over reforms and warnings from the UN Refugee Agency that the move breaches international law.
There were Russian casualties in the sinking of the warship Moskva in the Black Sea, according to a senior US government source. The US says it happened after Ukraine hit the vessel with 2 Neptune anti-ship missiles. But the Kremlin denies the claims, saying it was stormy seas and an ammunition explosion that sank it.
The Duke and Duchess of Sussex will speak at the Invictus Games opening ceremony in the Netherlands later. It's a televised event and it follows the visit on Thursday to see the Queen and the Prince of Wales in Windsor.
And health officials are warning certain Kinder chocolate products linked to the Salmonella outbreak should not be eaten this Easter weekend. The UK Health Security Agency says Kinder Surprise, Kinder Mini Eggs and Kinder Chockabons? Chockabons should not be eaten. You clearly know what a chockabon is.
I don't. I've never heard of one before.
Chockabon.
I'm just guessing.
It had an S at the beginning, so it's chockabon.
I was thinking, the whole the Moskva sinking.
Yes.
I was talking last night about the the way information is spun. Russia's saying, well, it wasn't hit, ammunition exploded. Well, it will have exploded.
It would have exploded, yes.
It's just what caused the explosion, I think.
Well, they're just not going to admit that they were sunk by the Ukrainians.
No, I don't think they are. I don't think they are. But it's an interesting development. What I don't like is when we're sort of the US sort of saying, oh, we've got to get the facts. We're saying, you know, the Russians died, you know, people were killed. And so that's a good thing. You know, it's never a good thing, is it?
No, of course it isn't on either side.
No.
It's just, but they shouldn't have invaded Ukraine and started the whole thing off. The other interesting thing is Prince Harry and Meghan visiting Windsor yesterday. It is now thought that there was a camera crew with them.
No.
Yeah, it's in the mail. There was they spotted. I don't know who spotted it. I think there were lots of people taking photographs. There was a van following them, and it's the same van that has been following them when they've been doing other things with Netflix. And it does look like a camera crew van that was around. Now, whether or not it wouldn't have been allowed inside the castle, I don't think.
No, sure.
But it just suggests that their visit to see the Queen is sort of part of the narrative of the documentary they're shooting.
Oh, that's
so
a shame.
Secret meeting, you know, it looks as though they're sort of, it's going to be, we'll see if it's going to be in the Netflix documentary. But it is a bit cynical if they took a crew with them for that important a meeting.
I hope it's not
Family meeting. I hope it's not true.
We'll find out in the next season of Harry and Meghan, won't we?
I was thinking, will I watch it? Nauseating though I think it will be, will I watch it? Yes.
Will you?
I suppose so.
I don't think I
need
will.
to know, won't I?
Now, it is a bank holiday weekend, just in case you've forgotten, and we are expecting to see about 22 million journeys made across the UK as families and friends rush to holiday destinations.
Yesterday, huge queues built up along the M20 as staff shortages and suspended ferry lines caused immense congestion around Dover.
The RAC said that despite some queues building up around airports and docks, most of the country escaped the feared travel chaos.
Well, to tell us what travellers are expecting to face today is Will Hollis, GBNews' East Midlands reporter, who is in Skeggy for us this morning, Skegness. Hello there.
Good morning. Yes, we've heard those numbers so much over the last week. The expectation to see lots of traffic on the roads. People would feel quite happy that in certain areas we saw a lot less traffic than we hoped. But of course, yes, areas around the M20, the M25 and the M6 certainly saw lots of trouble yesterday. That's because so many people, 22 million leisure journeys are going to be made over this bank holiday weekend. It was 4 million, the busiest day yesterday, Good Friday. Lots of people coming to locations like this, to coastlines just like this, as well as destinations inland. It's a little bit less today. It will be a little bit quieter on the roads, but still 3 million journeys, 3.6 million journeys are expected to be made. And you can understand why, because we're getting this perfect, pretty much perfect for this time of the year, for this point in April. Spring weather, low 20s for most places in the country. I think in the capital it's going to be about 22 degrees. Here where we are in Skegness on the Lincolnshire coastline, of course Skeggy, as you say there, and it's starting to be quite a beautiful and bright morning. It's going to be about 16, 17 degrees later today, as you can expect. Nice and quiet right now. It is obviously 6 a.m, but you can see all along the beach the residue of where kids have obviously been digging sandcastles and digging their sand holes, as you would expect. So the people that I've already been speaking to are saying that Skegness was already incredibly busy yesterday. Already the roads around here were very busy. The people that I spoke to from the council when I was talking about coming down here to do some filming today said get here as early as you can. Don't come anything later than around 7, 8, 9 o'clock, because parking spaces are going to fill up really quickly. And I can imagine it's the same in coastlines across the country, whether that's Dorset, whether that's the Cornish coastline, Margate, Blackpool. If you do want to come to these sorts of destinations, the advice from the RAC is, of course, to get out here as soon as you can, get out early, avoid that traffic. If possible, get out before 9 a.m. So if you are sitting at home watching GB News breakfast, maybe switch to the radio in the car instead and get out to these locations early, so you might save a little bit of hassle on the roads.
Well, hopefully, Will, you'll be surrounded by screaming children within the next hour or two. And let us just say, we are determined that by the time we come off air this morning, we want your shoes and socks off, we want your trousers rolled up to your knees, and we want you in that sea.
Yeah. Absolutely. I wonder how warm the sea is.
That's the deal.
It is. Oh, good. Thank you.
Good.
Great. Yeah.
Lovely, that's what we need to see.
Well, yes. Well, the Knotted Handkerchief Brigade.
Oh, yeah.
Out. Donkeys. Do they still have donkeys on British beaches anymore?
Oh, yeah, they do.
Oh,
Yeah.
good.
Still do the donkey rides. and
There
all
is
that.
nowhere finer than a British beach in good weather.
Yeah.
But so many of us have to say, we have to sort of, have to have wind breaks, don't we, and things like that.
It's a whole bag, getting a bag of chips.
Oh, yeah.
Bag of chips and a 99.
Yeah, that's
all
right,
that.
99.
Oh, lovely. And then paddle. I love a paddle.
Yes.
Got to get my feet in this.
Oh, yeah. The sea will be cold, though. It hasn't had time to warm up at all yet. But, yeah. Oh. Alexa says, I'm headed to Ibiza with the kids for the school break. Just a short weekend, but I need some sun. Well, maybe you think of staying at home. You'll get it here, yeah.
Good. Well, have a good time if you manage to get there safe and sound. I'm sure you will. Maybe just a slightly delayed. Stay with us here on Breakfast with Stephen. And now we've got plenty more to come, including the latest from Ukraine and President Zelensky warning the West that Putin could unleash a nuclear strike. Let's have a look at the weather for you. The UK is looking cloudy, misty and murky at first in the west, dry and bright elsewhere. So here are the details.
Southwest England will start the day with low cloud, mist, fog and possibly some drizzle at times, although this will tend to burn back to the coasts through the morning.
Now the southeast of England will start the day dry and bright, plenty of sunshine on offer for just about everyone.
Wales will also have a rather cloudy start, particularly near the coast, where patchy mist, fog or drizzle is possible, drier and brighter inland.
Moving on to the Midlands for you, and clouds will bring some hill fog and the odd spot of rain over the higher ground to the north of the central belt, but there'll also be plenty of sunny spells.
And it'll be rather cloudy in the northwest and northeast of England too. It will also brighten up through the morning though.
Moving on to Scotland, similar conditions to the rest of the country. Temperatures reaching about 16 degrees by midday, so that's not too bad.
Northern Ireland will also have a cloudy, misty and rather murky start to the day, especially near eastern coasts. However, it will steadily brighten up here through the morning. And there you are, that's your forecast for Easter Saturday.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
6:24, very good morning to you, watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Anne right across the UK on your TV, your radio and online.
Now, Moscow has sent a diplomatic note formally warning the US and other allied nations against supplying weapons to Ukraine.
Now, this comes after President Volodymyr Zelensky warned in an interview that the world should be prepared for the possibility that Russia will target Ukraine with a nuclear strike.
Well, Orysia Hrudka is a Euromaidan press journalist and joins us now, I think, live from Lviv. Hello there, very warm welcome to you. Thanks for joining us. What do you think about what President Zelensky has warned about a possible nuclear strike?
Actually, we think it's quite possible, because what Putin already and Russians already done in Ukraine is already bad. And they were raping children, they were shelling like civilians, kindergartens, hospitals. Mariupol, the whole city where almost 500,000 people lived, is almost totally destroyed. So we believe that Putin is ready for everything, and we try to, mentally and emotionally prepare that this may happen. Of course, you can't prepare in full, but at least psychologically, we need to be ready for everything,
Forgive me for interrupting, but it would be an incredible thing if he carried out on this sort of threat, because it would inevitably provoke some sort of response, and potentially a nuclear response in Russia.
Yeah, we hope for that, because it's how it should be, because such crimes shouldn't be unpunished when it happens. And the other reasons why we know it's possible is because during the Soviet Union, actually, the third of Ukrainian population was killed by Russians, basically by Stalin. So there was another genocide in Ukrainian history in 1932-1933, where roughly 4 million people were killed in less than a year. So Russian regime didn't change much, unfortunately, if you compare it with the 20th century.
The fact that President Zelensky has said this in an interview with an American news service suggests that he still feels that we allies are not doing enough to help him. Do you think that's true?
We are grateful for all the aid which has been done, for every military aid from each country. But I also interviewed some military experts, and they say that heavy weapons like artillery, specific long-range anti-aircraft missile systems, they are really necessary, and fighter jets are necessary to conduct more effective operations, and the war would end much faster if we had that. And also, for example, defendants of Mariupol, they say that unblocking Mariupol is possible. But Zelensky says we need more weaponry for that. And all military experts say this as well. For example, with this MiG-29 Polish MiGs, it was the whole discussion, and some Western commentators said that Ukraine doesn't actually need them. But our pilots, they say that we need them urgently, because with just Bayraktars, it's not possible to conduct effective operations and to end the war faster.
In Lviv, can I ask what life is like for people there now? I mean, it's pretty close to the Polish border. It is somewhere which has been relatively unscathed by the attacks. I know you have had some, but it's been less badly affected than other parts of the country. But how is morale now? Because very nearly 7 weeks into this, people must be getting absolutely distraught, ground down with what is happening.
But we, of course, try to hold on. And you said right, it's close to the Polish border. And that's why we have a lot of volunteering corps here. A lot of people volunteer. They try to find some basic stuff for the army, for the units, and to sort out the things which are coming from abroad. So we have lots of volunteering corps. And also in Lviv, we had a lot of internally displaced people. So 5 million people approximately left Ukraine, but we also have around 7 million internally displaced people, and a lot of them are in Lviv. For example, my husband and I, we gave our flat to our friends from Kiev, and now we live with our parents, and it's how lives goes on in Lviv. And also, as a journalist, I sometimes visit hospitals and interview people who are injured due to the shelling by Russia. So it's also in our hospitals we cure in Lviv people who are wounded, injured during the war. And about the morale, people try to do something. Personally, me, I feel good when I contribute, when I work, when I do something to end this faster. And I think it's the secret of Ukraine's defense as well, Ukrainian society, is that people feel responsibilities. They don't just observe, but they try to intervene and to do something, to volunteer, to sign up for military defense, or to write, to tell the world what's going on, to report about war crimes. And after Bucha massacre, and after they retreated from Kiev Oblast and Chernihiv Oblast, loads of war crimes and human first account stories come. We know about them, and it's really terrible.
Look, Arissia, it's really good to talk to you this morning. Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, thank you.
They're a resilient people, the Ukrainians.
Incredibly so, yeah. But I mean, all of as you said, this grinding down, this has gone on now for so many weeks. We're discovering that there's more and more terrible things have happened. And look at the way the cities are left and everything. I mean, it looks as though there's already been a nuclear strike.
It does.
Doesn't it?
I think that's, is that Mariupol?
Oh, isn't that terrible?
It's absolutely.
Look, everything's destroyed.
I mean, how do you begin to rebuild a place like that as well? I mean, it's like starting from the ground up.
And with the ever-present threat, the worry of what will Putin do next? Could he possibly do something nuclear? It must be terrifying.
It's interesting, though, the threat of a nuclear strike, because there would be a retaliation, there would have to be a retaliation. I wonder if that would be the last straw for those around Putin, if he actually got close to pressing that button, whether they would actually say, "This enough is enough."
It's a horrible scenario. We thought that was in the past, didn't we? And here we are in the 21st century. And it's still there. It's still there, isn't it? Awful. Anyway, there you go. It is Easter Saturday, and there's plenty more uplifting things to talk about as well. Unless, of course, you're stuck in traffic trying to get away somewhere. We'll be talking about all the travel problems as well a bit later on. Also got the newspapers coming up, and there's plenty in them too.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you, or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
"6:35 morning to you, watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Anne live across the UK on your TV, on your radio and online.
So let's bring you up to date with what's in the news. The Home Secretary says other countries, including Denmark, could follow the UK's Rwanda asylum plan. Priti Patel made the comment despite reports of a civil service row over the reforms and warnings from the United Nations Refugee Agency that it breaches international law.
There were Russian casualties in the sinking of the warship Moskva in the Black Sea, according to senior US government sources. The US says it happened after Ukraine hit the vessel with 2 Neptune anti-ship missiles. The Kremlin denies that, citing stormy seas and an ammunition explosion.
The Duke and Duchess of Sussex will speak at the Invictus Games opening ceremony in the Netherlands later. The televised event follows Thursday's visits to the Queen and the Prince of Wales in Windsor.
Health officials are warning certain Kinder chocolate products linked to the Salmonella outbreak should not be eaten this Easter weekend. The UK Health Security Agency says Kinder Surprise, Kinder Mini Eggs and Kinder Chocobons should not be eaten.
Councils are warning that criminals are cold-calling people in a scam over energy rebate payments. The government says it will never ask for bank details over the phone and is urging the public to stay alert to fraudsters.
Thousands of people with Parkinson's disease will be given smartwatches that will remind them to take their medication and monitor their movements. NHS England says the watch sends signals about the patient's activity to doctors and buzzes when they need to take their pills.
And the average price of a home by the sea has jumped by more than £22,000. A report from Halifax says that coastal property values have been boosted by the switch to home working during the pandemic.
OK, let's have a look at the front pages for you. This morning we'll start with The Telegraph. It leads on the controversial new plans to fit all cars with speed-limiting devices.
The Mirror reports on Harry and Meghan's surprise Windsor visit, with the royal couple vowing to bring their 2 young children to visit in future.
The Times has the news that SAS troops are training local forces in Ukraine.
The Guardian continues its coverage of the PM's Rwanda migration plan, quoting United Nations officials who call it a symbolic gesture doomed to fail.
The Eye has Rwanda reporting migrants will not be deterred by the scheme, it says.
And The Star covers Britain's Easter heatwave, although warns that the sea is still too cold to swim in.
The FT has Elon Musk's attempted takeover of Twitter as senior company executives attempt to return the hostilities.
The Express predicts a £2 billion Easter boost to the economy as Brits choose to stay home rather than travel abroad.
And the Mail covers the excessive work-from-home liberties given to civil servants.
I love the way the Express always tries to, if they can, they always try and go upbeat, don't they? So, you know, the fact that we're staying at home for Easter is going to be a boom to the economy.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Just make you think, though, if we should be deliberately staying at home to boost the economy.
Yeah, that's right. We should. Do you remember in the 70s, we had a sort of Buy British campaign? Used to go around with little badges that said, Buy British, Buy British.
Really?
Ever had the option, Buy British? Yeah. I suppose that would be seen as not being very inclusive nowadays, wouldn't it?
I think it's quite a good idea. Yeah. What's wrong with it? Anyway, we shall see. Former Conservative advisor Claire Pearsall and the late editor of The Eye, Benjamin Butterworth, are here to take us through the papers
Hi
this
there.
morning. Good to
Good
see
morning.
you both.
Good morning.
Claire, let's have a look at The Guardian and this Rwanda scheme. The UN is getting stuck in on it now.
It is, and it's quite interesting that you've got the High Commissioner Gillian Triggs wading in on the row, stating that it could well break international law, and especially in discrimination terms, which is something that people don't necessarily want to have a look at. And I think what she suggests is that we have come up, the United Kingdom has come up with bespoke schemes for Ukrainians, for Syrians, for Afghans, for Hong Kong nationals, but now we're not going to do this for anybody else coming over. So you could fall foul of the UNHCR rules on that. Now, whether that makes a difference to those in power, let's have a look at it. But I do think it's worth noting that we will run a two-tier immigration system, which is not what it is supposed to be.
Isn't that our right as a sovereign nation?
I think you can run a system to get the skill sets into a country, but I don't think you can discriminate on the basis of how people have arrived. That is certainly against the Refugee Convention. So that would be a breach of international law. And why should you be able to choose who comes, as in the method of travel? Surely, if people are coming here to seek asylum, it's because they are desperate. So why are you going to say, well, you can't come in because you came in on the back of a lorry, but OK, we'll have a look. I'm really uncomfortable with this picking and choosing. I think you have an immigration system, you have a set of rules and you stick to it. You can't then just pick and choose because you fancy it.
OK.
Well, I mean, I just hate the fact that this will only apply to men. It strikes me as a slight demonisation of these male migrants, because just because someone is a fit, healthy 25-year-old man doesn't mean that they're less likely to have been fleeing torture. So a woman who is an economic migrant wouldn't be subjected to this, but a man, purely by virtue of being a man, would be shipped off to Rwanda straight away. And, imagine if you were, a gay person that had escaped Syria, been on the most perilous journey to get to our shores, and then you're shipped off, or put on a plane, rather, to Rwanda, a country which tortures gay people, and you could be left there. And when Israel did this similar scheme, most of the 4,000 people it took to Rwanda escaped and fell into the hands of people smugglers once again.
Well, I suppose the argument would be, why don't they stay in France, or whichever country they pass through?
Well, France takes 3 to 4 times more refugees than we take. So while it's a valid argument, I just can't help but think, don't we have a moral and neighbourly obligation to take a reasonable number of these people? We talk about it in this country like we're Jordan or something, like we take millions of refugees. We don't. We take a really small number.
Well, why don't they then apply through the legitimate channels?
Well, do you know what I think is quite revealing about all this is that when the tragedy in Ukraine started to unfold, Eurostar said we'll give any Ukrainian a free ticket from Paris to London, and good on them. But the idea that that's happening while people are literally dying in the waters that you're passing through on that train, I think is questionable of whether we should make it easier for them to get here legally, and then they won't be in the hands of these smugglers that are ruining their lives and making a fortune off them.
I was going to say, sorry, there aren't also the safe and legal routes for asylum seekers. We have routes for refugees, we have routes for refugee family reunion, but we don't have them for asylum seekers. They have to be in the United Kingdom to launch that claim in the first place. So they have to make that journey. And if there were safe and legal routes available to them, then perhaps they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't look to people smugglers to get them across the channel. So I think we need to look a little bit harder at what we do over in Europe and beyond.
Well, it looks as though Priti Patel is having a tough time even talking her own staff into this.
She is. I don't think she gets on very well with the top staff at the Home Office. Now, some people might take that as an endorsement of her attitude, but they had to launch a ministerial direction, which apparently is when the permanent secretary of the Home Office, in this case, says that it doesn't represent value for money, so they had to force it through. Now, the value for money question, I think, is one that probably a lot of people will be bothered by, because polling out today says that more people agree with this policy than disagree with it, but it's going to cost about £20,000 to £30,000 per migrant or per refugee.
It's an astonishing amount, isn't it?
I mean, it really is, because you think about all the costs, there'll be legal costs, duty of care costs, the flying costs, putting them in accommodation for 3 months in Rwanda. Also, presumably they have to have inoculations if they're going to a country like that. That has to be provided for them. It's very expensive. And I think it's surely likely the real cost is far higher, because...
So Priti Patel has had to have this sort of directive to overrule the concerns of any of her own staff.
That's right, yeah, and it's only the second time it's been used in 30 years. The other time was the Windrush funding for victims.
But apparently Boris Johnson is very, very keen that she drives this through. So they're obviously determined that it will work.
And I bet he is, and I bet he's quite enjoying the argument, because, of course, we're not talking about the Partygate fines, of which there might be more, and also there's the local elections coming up. And
well, that will be the real key, won't it, is whether this proves to be popular with the voters.
Exactly, and 60% of Conservatives support this and only 10% of Labour. Now, what is Boris Johnson's big problem at the local elections? It's that Tories won't turn out because they're really angry that he took the mick with the breaking his own lockdown rules. Well, here's a policy that will probably turn Tories out.
Very cynical to suppose that, but do you think that's true?
I think any good journalist is cynical.
Advisor.
Yeah.
Do you think it's true?
Yeah, I think Benjamin's right, actually. And I do cynically think that perhaps there'll be legal objections to this, and then the Home Office and Boris Johnson can
back off
and
it.
say, yeah, absolutely, it's not us. They told us we couldn't do it. I mean, I'm being a little bit cynical, but you can see that narrative probably would come out in the long run.
Oh, well. Well, we shall see.
We shall see, yeah.
Can we have a look at, Claire, this is in The Guardian, the climate protests, because obviously there's more and more stuff going on in London at the moment, which a lot of people are going to say, well, it's London, we don't care. But nevertheless, it's significant.
It is significant, and you've got Extinction Rebellion activists blocking bridges in London, I think Vauxhall Bridge, Westminster Bridge and Blackfriars Bridge. Protesting over climate change, which, is their right to a peaceful protest. But when it stops people going about their daily lives, it stops, especially on Westminster Bridge, that's one of the main routes into St Thomas's Hospital. I'm really against this kind of thing. Have a peaceful protest all you like. Please don't disrupt other people's lives. If
you're not disruptors, no one's going to listen to you.
But you can be disruptive. You can go and be disruptive elsewhere. You can go and actually campaign outside the buildings which hold that power. Why block a bridge which is going to affect normal people who don't have...
Because it gets us talking about it. We wouldn't really be talking about it if they just did it outside an office block.
Is that the problem, though, is that we are giving them all that airtime? I don't think gluing yourself to, one of the departments in London or an oil company's reception... Well, how is that going to help? It's actually just going to make people angry and turn against them. So I just think it's a bit counterproductive.
Do you reckon, Benjamin?
I mean, look, I think that you shouldn't be allowed to sort of block cars endlessly. That kind of pushes the boundaries of a functioning civil society. But there's no doubt that the fact they've done this has worked. We all have heard of Extinction Rebellion.
Yes.
And people are far more aware of the issues. You look at the polling, and the environment is consistently in the top 5 issues for voters. In fact, sometimes it ranks above immigration. And so it's clear that a lot of voters are concerned about this. Even though they might look at the Extinction Rebellion people and think they're a little bit nutty, actually, some of the questions that have been raised and debates have been had have got people changing their minds. And I think the government knows that as well.
Can I talk about Harry and Meghan?
Yeah, the real issue here.
Well, the real issue. She's on the front page of nearly every single newspaper
Wearing
today.
Valentino.
Yeah, I mean, she looks wonderful. She looks gorgeous. It's like the old days again. Suddenly, the press love her today. But what was going on, really, do you think?
She does look stunning. Well, this is the Sun's front page, which is about the fact that Harry and Meghan went to see the Queen and Prince Charles at Windsor, and this is their first time in several years. Lilibet, the baby named after the Queen, wasn't there, so the Queen still hasn't met her own grandchild. But they say the Sun reports that Prince Harry was behind this meeting of them getting back together. And of course, it comes after only recently he didn't turn up to his grandfather's memorial service because he said the security wasn't sufficient in this country. And I have to say, one of the questions I thought when I saw that they were going to Holland for the Invictus Games was, well, how come Holland apparently is secure, but...
Well, they've given them VVIP status. Apparently the Netherlands has given them VVIP, means very, very important person. Apparently that's true.
Yeah.
And therefore I presume the security they're being afforded in the Netherlands is enough to satisfy Harry.
I'll tell you what, I think most European royal families were at the memorial of Prince Philip, including our own. So I suspect it had VVVIP security at that. So, I think they kind of had to see the Queen at this point because how absurd it would have looked if they'd gone to Holland but still not turned up here.
It would have looked terrible, actually.
It would, although that doesn't usually stop them.
No.
Any sympathy at this end of the table?
Well, not hugely. I mean, they gave their father, he gave his father 15 minutes of his time. And I just feel, after everything that has gone on, and haven't we all learned that family is really, really important? And it just feels really off to say, well, we'll come and see you for 15 minutes, we'll pop in, so to wave at your grandmother.
His father hasn't been to go and see him.
But who's caused the split? Who moved away? And I kind of think there needs to be a little bit of give and take.
Not only did he move away, but he was very rude about his father in the Oprah Winfrey interview.
And there's the book that's coming out. There is the series that they're doing. So he's not really helped himself. And I think it's really incumbent upon him to come to his father and...
The other thing that has been mooted in particularly the Mail today is they think they've got evidence that they did take a Netflix camera crew with them to Windsor. I don't imagine that camera crew would have been allowed inside the castle. No. But in other words, they were filmed on their way to Windsor and probably back from Windsor. So that visit is going to be part of the narrative of the documentary they end up shooting.
God, it's just so trashy.
That does feel trashy. I wonder if the Queen knew. Yeah. Because that is awful. That's like using her as part of the narrative.
I always liked Harry and Meghan. I actually sort of sympathise and agree with a lot of the kind of vaguely political statements they make. And yet even I feel like I can't defend them because, you know, they're just making a fortune and they're making a fortune off the status that people of this country gave them.
Yeah, well, look, we shall have to just wait and see how it all pans out. Maybe bridges are being rebuilt, you never know. Benjamin, Claire, thank you. We'll catch up with you both a little bit later on.
Now, over this Easter weekend, many of us are going to be getting together with friends and family, but the impacts of the pandemic leave some still pretty apprehensive about large gatherings.
Well, let's talk to Dr. Shelley Gilbert, founder and president of Grief Encounter, who joins us now. Good to see you this morning. I mean, do you think, now that we are in this sort of post-pandemic, living with COVID sort of situation, that this is still going to be something people are considering?
Oh, considering, I have to say, Stephen, this is probably the scariest position since I started meeting bereaved families at Grief Encounter. It's the scariest position. Why is it the scariest position? There's so many issues still around. We've got long COVID. We, at Grief Encounter, as with most employers, we're down in staff. We haven't operated with a full team since I can't even remember when. So we've got the impact of long COVID on physical and mental health. Plus, we've got no parties, the lack of socialisation, and we're pre-programmed to interact. And what we're also seeing big time now is a dissipation of that community spirit. I think in the beginning, and it still exists, you know, there was that welcoming back of being the nuclear family, but particularly with our bereaved families, and I'm not going to tell Anne too much about bereavement that she doesn't already know. But there is this absolute dissipation of community spirit, and it's left this really I find really scary boredom and fatigue because of our depleted resources and exhaustion. There's just sort of almost a lack of interest, and that's what I find really, really scary. So that's the problem. What I'm more interested in, as I say to my team, don't come to me with your problems, come to me with the solutions. And we've got some of those solutions, but we have to work so much harder. And what we're finding, I don't know if you have experienced this, but certainly the families we're meeting, the people I'm meeting, that we will have to work harder to achieve less.
I know what you mean about the idea of it all being exhausting. Worrying about COVID for 2 years now is exhausting. Worrying whether you're doing the right thing. Worrying about whether you're responsible going to meet your family, particularly if anyone is vulnerable and could be vulnerable to COVID. I think it is exhausting, that, isn't it? But nevertheless, it is Easter and we want to get together, and it's important and it's uplifting to actually see each other properly, isn't it?
When we get together, especially amongst the bereavement community, everything has that grey cloud. And you've got the challenges of travelling and getting there and getting together. And when you get there, it's perhaps in small numbers. And the isolation that COVID has caused is probably unmeasurable. Families have become statistics. You're already suffering from trauma, and I mean suffering. And I still don't think that we're recognising the real suffering and the despair that families are meeting, children, young people, and adults alike. And
I think,
as with Harry and Meghan, just to get a bit of attention and headlines from you all, as with Harry, as with William, as with all the royal family, we're all our families. When you do get together, there is that cloud. Either there's arguments or not arguments, or lack of a chance to get together, and even there's lack of with a lack of resources, money, etc., etc.
It certainly is. It certainly is, Shelley, a difficult time. I know for a lot of people, we do need that support.
It's more than difficult. It's more than difficult, Stephen.
We've got to leave it there, I'm afraid. But it's been really good to talk to you this morning. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you. Yeah, a lot of people will be worried because they are going to see family for the first time, maybe in months, and it will be joyous on the one hand. And on the other hand, I mean, even my family, we're getting together next week, not this one, actually, and we're all wondering, should we all take a lateral flow test before we arrive? You've got to pay for them now, of course.
You've got to pay for them.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I'm all for living with it.
Should you wear masks anymore? I don't know.
No, well, look, I tell you what, it would be nice. We want you to get in touch this morning, gbviews@gbnews.uk. I mean, anything you want to talk about, as always, but particularly, do you know what? Because it is, again, it's still a bit grim. Let's have something to cheer us up. Let us know if you've travelled somewhere yesterday and got somewhere and it's lovely and happy and you're with family and friends or on the beach or whatever, get in touch. Let us know where you are and give us some
lovely good news. Yes, please do.
Thank you.
Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking cloudy, misty and murky at first in the west, dry and bright elsewhere. Let's take a look at the details. Southwest England will start the day with low cloud, mist, fog and possibly some drizzle at times, although this will tend to turn back to the coasts through the morning. In contrast, the southeast of England will start the day dry and bright with plenty of sunshine on offer for all. Wales will also have a rather cloudy start, particularly near the coast where patchy mist, fog or drizzle is possible, drier and brighter inland. In the Midlands, cloud will also bring hill fog and the odd spot of rain over the higher ground to the north of the central belt, but there will also be some sunny spells. It'll be rather cloudy in the northwest and northeast of England too. It'll also brighten up though through the morning. Scotland will see similar conditions to the rest of the country, with temperatures reaching 16 degrees by midday. Northern Ireland will also have a cloudy, misty and rather murky start to the day, especially near eastern coasts. However, it will steadily brighten up here through the morning. And that's your forecast for your Easter Saturday.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, but to the point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
The Home Secretary believes other countries will follow the UK's Rwanda asylum proposals amidst reports of a civil service backlash over the plan.
Good morning to you. It is 7 o'clock on Saturday, the 16th of April. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Anne.
And we're live across the whole of the UK on both your TV and your radio.
And coming up for you today, Priti Patel says the government's plan to send illegal migrants to Rwanda will serve as a blueprint, despite reports of a row in the Home Office and warnings from the UN Refugee Agency that it breaches international law.
The Duke and Duchess of Sussex will both speak on stage at the Invictus Games opening ceremony later today, just one day after the couple's first public appearance in Europe since quitting as senior working royals more than 2 years ago.
And hopefully an Easter sizzler. The UK is set for warm weather ahead of Easter Sunday after experiencing the hottest day of the year so far yesterday. We're going to be live in Skegness for you this morning, where hopefully the sun will be shining.
We used to go to Skegness when I was a kid.
Did
holidays,
you?
yeah.
I don't know that I've ever
beach.
been.
It's a lovely
Skeggy.
beach, there's no doubt about it. You just have to pray for good weather, but we're going to get it today.
Yeah, I'm gonna get
You can join in any of our discussions, please, by emailing gbviews at gbnews.uk or tweet at gbnews.
Really fancy a beach now, now that we've mentioned it.
Yeah, and now you see the pictures of it there. It's the sort of classic British beach.
The only problem is when everyone has the same thought and they get very busy.
Well, that's right, and that's what we're hearing. If you actually want to spend the day on a beach somewhere in Britain today, go now, even if it's probably too early, because you'll never be able to park later. You just have to go now, take GB News with you, so you can get there, get your parking space, and then just sit and listen to us, or watch us, actually, on the app on your phone.
Yeah, grab a cup of coffee somewhere.
Yeah, and wait for the sun to come out.
Yes, yeah. But it'd be nicer, when the sun does come out, it'd just be nice to lie there, soak it up a little bit.
Go on, where are you going today? Let us know.
Oh, yes. Send us something to cheer us up this morning. We need cheering up. Don't know about you. We need cheering up.
Absolutely, yeah. But the sun is rising, and you know it is going to get warmer today. So it's an old-fashioned Easter weekend in Britain.
About time
Love
too.
It. Yeah.
Now let's just take through the main news this morning, because the Home Secretary believes that other countries will try to emulate the UK Rwanda asylum scheme, noting that Denmark could be amongst those to reproduce the blueprint. Though I thought we were told yesterday Denmark was already doing it.
Yeah.
So I don't quite understand.
Everybody seems to say different things on that, don't they?
Yes.
And the UN's Refugee Agency are saying that the plans actually will constitute a breach of international law.
The UNHCR is accusing the government of shifting responsibility and evading international obligations.
Well, Downing Street says migrants who arrive in Britain unlawfully could be sent to the East African country within 6 weeks.
Now, it's a pilot scheme. It's costing £120 million, and it's going to target single men, as apparently they make up the majority of the more than 28,000 who crossed the Channel last year.
Priti Patel reportedly took the rare step of issuing what they call a ministerial directive to overrule the concerns of her own civil servants about whether the concept will actually deliver value for money. Well, earlier we spoke to Dr. Greg Mills, the former strategic advisor to the president of Rwanda and director from the Brenthurst Foundation, about the resistance to the plan.
Well, I think it's a highly transactional response to the refugee crisis in the UK, and essentially you're putting the responsibility on another country. Now, the problem here is that Rwanda, while it has a very good record at development and a very good record at relative economic prosperity, and it's an accessible place, at least for foreign visitors, and something of a favorite among certain sort of rock stars in the aid and development industry, it has an appalling human rights record. It ranks with 22 points out of 100, for instance, on Freedom House's index on political freedoms, which puts it in about the same space as Russia, for instance. Now, you wouldn't be sending your refugees to Russia to see them catered for and cared for. So why, you would ask, are you sending them to Rwanda? And I think the answer is simply that the Rwandese are willing to have them, they're willing to process them, and they're willing to do so because they're getting £120 million in return. And it seems, I think, frankly, a way of shifting the blame to another place, to another country, or shifting the problem, should I say, rather, and rather than having to deal with it at source. And you really, to deal with the refugee crisis, and particularly the refugee crisis from sub-Saharan Africa, which is responsible for most refugees in the world today, not most of those coming to the UK, by the way. But you have to really deal with it at source. And dealing with it at source means essentially improving the political conditions in the countries that are supplying these refugees to enable the economies, in turn, to ensure conditions of prosperity. I think people are probably, the push factors on refugees are probably great enough that they will regardless take a chance. I mean, these are people fleeing terrible conditions, whether they be terrible economic conditions or political repression. They probably suffice to push them to the UK or to somewhere better in Europe. And I think the hazardous nature of the journeys that they're willing to undertake is an illustration of that desperation. So I'm not sure if the possibility of them ending up in Rwanda will be a deterrent. I think it's just simply shifting the problem elsewhere on the part of the UK. And I do think there is a moral question here, which is these are people who have obviously fleeing conditions, and they may just be in search of a better life, but certainly a safer life. And then essentially you're putting them into a place whereby they may not, in fact, be experiencing the conditions for a better life or a safer life at all. And I really don't believe it has a deterrent value among people who are this desperate.
Well, I have to say, a lot of you getting in touch this morning, gbviews@gbnews.uk, don't agree with Greg Mills there. Tony, morning Tony, says people say it's impractical to do all of this. The idea is it'll have to be implemented for a few weeks or months, then it will reduce the illegal migration problem drastically, so then it rarely needs to be used. It needs to be shown to be happening, so it needs to be done initially, then people simply won't risk handing several thousand euros to the people trafficking.
Yes, that's the problem that needs to be stopped, isn't it? It's the people trafficking. Lottie says maybe it's time for a referendum on illegal immigration. That way, any government will know where the citizens of the UK stand on illegal immigrants and can act accordingly, knowing they're doing what the people want. I don't know whether referendums work in this country, do they? They always end up doing something that it just causes such division.
Yes, you voted for this, but we think you voted wrongly.
Yeah. Or you're too ignorant to actually know what you're voting about.
Yes, you don't understand what you're voting about.
Yeah.
All of that.
There was a lot of that.
Look, we've asked you to get in touch with stuff to cheer us up this morning, to give us all a bit of breath of fresh air, a bit of Easter sunshine in your messages. Gail and Nigel, good morning to you. Just wanted to say how glad we are to have discovered your morning show. It's a breath of fresh air, even with the awful things going on at present.
Yeah.
We love Stephen and Anne, Eamon and Isabel, and great guests too.
And Lynn is watching, good morning Lynn, from sunny Kings Lynn, she says. It's such a pleasure to tune in every morning now. I really enjoy watching a balanced, non-shouty programme.
Oh, non-shouty.
I know what you mean. I hate shouty programmes.
It seems to have become, people think, it always seems to be the presenters thinking they're cleverer than the guest.
Or deliberately wanting conflict.
Yes.
Where there doesn't need to be conflict. There can just be interesting conversation.
Yeah, so that you can then take away your own views from what the guest says and when they're challenged and what have you. It doesn't have to be shouty. I want to say a special good morning to Marky. Morning, Marky. He's written in to say he's cancer-free after a substantial operation in February, now on the road to recovery. Well done, you. I've lost my job due to this, but my health is more important.
Of course it is.
Yes, it is. I hope you're getting all the support you need. And Marky says, anyone struggling with their health at the moment out there, believe me, a positive mental attitude can really help. Onwards and upwards.
Yeah, and Henry he says, I enjoyed a lovely sunny retirement day by the pool yesterday. Is it your own pool? Nice.
Nice, Henry.
Same again today, he says, plus no traffic to worry about. Great show, guys. I'm watching and listening to GB News every day. Do you know, that sounds perfect to me.
Oh, Henry.
Sitting by the side of your own swimming pool, listening to whatever programme you want to listen to.
Isn't it nice?
Non-shouty.
I'm very pleased, Henry, that you're on message with the watching and listening to.
Yeah. GB Views at gbnews.uk.
Lovely to hear.
That's the line.
Lovely to hear from you this morning. Give us something to smile about.
Yeah. Oh, Teresa, though, she says, all this talk of Easter and eggs, etc. I'm in bed with COVID, feeling sorry for myself and isolating, and after over a week, still feeling rubbish. Just need to celebrate later, and hopefully there might be some eggs left for me.
Hopefully someone goes and fetches you.
You deserve an egg.
You certainly do. Let's bring you up to date with the headlines. And there have been Russian casualties in the sinking of the warship Moskva in the Black Sea. That's according to senior US government sources. The United States says it happened after Ukraine hit the vessel with Neptune anti-ship missiles. The Kremlin denies that and says it was all down to stormy seas and an ammunition explosion.
The Duke and Duchess of Sussex will speak at the Invictus Games opening ceremony in the Netherlands later. The televised event follows Thursday's visits to the Queen and the Prince of Wales in Windsor.
And we're all being warned that certain Kinder chocolate products that were linked to the salmonella outbreak last week should not be eaten this Easter weekend, so be careful. The UK Health Security Agency has issued the alert for Kinder Surprise, Kinder Mini Eggs and Kinder Chocobons.
Well, good morning and happy Easter to you, of course, because it is a bank holiday weekend. It's Easter Saturday today. And apparently we're going to see over 22 million journeys made across the UK as families and friends rush to their holiday destinations.
Yes, so let's see what you could expect today. Will Hollis, our East Midlands reporter, who's plodded down to Skegness for us this morning. Oh, it looks very nice behind you. There's a Ferris wheel behind you and everything. Will looks like it could be a lovely day out there for people.
Good morning. Yes, you know actually what you can see behind me as well. I didn't know that they did this at the Seaside. There's a tractor that goes along after the day's people footprinting all the way along it. They come along and they flatten it all so it's nice and flat for the next day's kids and next day's families to come along. So I think that's one of these interesting things that you don't really realise unless you live at the coast, if you live here all the time. One of the things that people that I am speaking to that are out walking their dogs at this time in the morning, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning, they're saying that while it might be an empty beach right now, obviously bright and early on this Saturday morning, it is going to be rammed here. Of course, Easter bank holiday, we heard it, 22 million leisure journeys, people coming to these coastal destinations, Skegness, Margate, the Cornish coastline, Blackpool. 3.6 billion of those journeys are going to be made today. Now, we came from Nottingham bright and early this morning. That's the advice that the RAC is saying, is they're saying get out onto the roads nice and early, because we have seen some elements of congestion, particularly around places like the M25, the M20, of course, to Dover if people were planning on getting a ferry, planning on going over to France for the weekend. We also saw some trouble yesterday for the M6. Today, of course, we've got the FA Cup semi-final, Liverpool versus Manchester City. There's meant to be a lot of traffic on the road in that sense as well. But of course, if you are coming to places like Skegness, particularly in and around the towns, there's going to be an expectation that it will be hard to find parking. It will be a little bit trickier when you're trying to get into the town during those peak hours, you know, around kind of 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. If you're trying to get fish and chips for lunch, you might find that you're waiting in a queue. Lots of people are really coming to these destinations because, of course, 2 years of the pandemic, many people haven't been out. They're feeling a little bit better now. Vaccinations, different forms of safety, no restrictions though, so you might feel a little bit safer than that. Of course, we've seen places like Manchester Airport, Birmingham Airport, where there's massive queues. So maybe you'll choose to come to a coastal destination like Skegness in Lincolnshire instead of going to Spain for a last-minute holiday. Lots of people are going to be filling this beach over the next couple of hours, so stick around. I'm sure it's going to be quite a sight to see.
Oh, let's hope so. Let's hope so. Will, thank you very much indeed. Looks a bit... Are you a bit chilly there at the moment, though? Is it a bit breezy?
I am. It's obviously the wind from the North Sea. You can see that the sun is really bright. It's probably going to blow out the camera. But over there, the wind is coming in. It's a little bit chillier. I put away my winter coat because I looked at how good the weather is going to be, around 14, 15, 16 degrees in Skegness. But most places in Britain getting low 20s, 21, 22 degrees today. Although we did see the highest day on record for this year yesterday for Good Friday.
Yeah. OK, well, look, hopefully it warms up for you soon and then you can go paddling. Will, thank you.
That's it about being a British holiday maker. You have to be stalwart, don't you? You have to be prepared for almost anything.
You do never go anywhere without your big coat.
No, absolutely. Yeah, and those sort of ponchos and things like that, because you never know quite what's going to happen. But you have to be optimistic too, don't you, as a British holiday maker?
Yes, you do.
You have to be determined that it is going to be sunny and you will get in the sea.
But you say it's not always easy to get wherever you want to go at the moment. Let's talk to Paul Charles from the PC agency, a travel, PR and brand consultancy. Good to see you, Paul. It's been a while since we've chatted. Look, what is going wrong this weekend as far as travel is concerned? I mean, roads are one thing, we can expect that. But with the airline and with the trains in particular, it's been pretty badly organised, hasn't it?
Yes, I think basically this is the rebound, the recovery taking place, which, you talk about being positive. It's good news that consumers have the confidence to get out there, travel again, whether it's in the UK or overseas. But a lot of firms in travel, airports, airlines, the rail companies, they're just not seemingly able to cope with that rebound. They've been obviously under pressure over the last 2 years. They've put many people on furlough. They've lost many staff due to having to make redundancies. And also many staff have left the industry to go and work in sectors that are more certain, like the IT sector, which is paying much better in terms of wages. And so we've simply lost hundreds of thousands of people from the travel and tourism sector. And as a result, when the demand has come back, as you've seen this weekend, then most companies can't cope with that demand.
Shame, because as I was saying earlier, there's something about the British holiday maker. We are determined, the minute the sun comes out, to go and enjoy ourselves. We need a travel industry that can cope.
Yes, it's true. You've got to be brave to travel during the peak Easter period. Here I am at home, but I'm actually travelling tonight, so we'll see what it's like at the airport. But undoubtedly, if you choose to travel at a peak time, whether it's by train to Skegness, whether it is, at the airport, whether it's by car and the millions who've been travelling by car, you have to expect at the peak periods that you're going to be held up in some way. We don't seem to have the infrastructure to cope in this country, which seems bizarre because we've had plenty of practice at doing it, but we're simply unable to cope with large numbers gathering or passing through at short notice. And I think one of the issues, certainly from the airport's point of view, is that we don't seem to have the digital technology that makes our travel more seamless. That's where we've got to get better. We don't have the advanced technology that places like Singapore use, for example, where when you go to an airport, it checks your iris, does an iris scan, and then you don't need to get any phones out or paperwork or anything because it just follows your journey via the iris scanning that it does. We don't seem to have that. We're not as advanced, and I think that's something that successive governments have failed at and need to address.
Me either. That sounds
amazing. Yeah. Love that. It's very sci-fi. What about forward planning with all of this? Because and re-planning actually and re-strategizing, because you look at the trains and places like Euston Station completely closed this weekend, Friday to Monday. Now, look, you can understand why they want to prioritise commuters, but those priorities have changed now, haven't they, post-COVID?
Absolutely, you're spot on there, Stephen. I mean, it just seems bizarre that the mentality of planning in the rail system is still as it was pre-pandemic. And that mentality is essentially that they won't affect business traffic, commuter traffic during the week, and they will do the work during holidays when they think fewer people travel. But of course, that's changed. It's changed. It actually changed before the pandemic, but it's certainly changed since, when many of us will go to the train instead. We'll obviously want to get away and go and visit family and friends, and we expect a decent rail service. It seems bizarre that you can't travel out of Euston on the busiest weekend of the year so far. It seems strange that you can't get a Gatwick Express down to Gatwick to get on a plane at Gatwick Airport on one of the busiest weekends ever. So there are over 9,000 people over 9,000 flights from the UK this weekend, with 1.6 million passengers on board, and yet we do our very best as a country to stop many of those people getting there easily. Yeah, the mentality's got to shift. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and it's no longer acceptable to queue. I mean, I know people make jokes about us Brits that we love to queue, but actually we don't. And I can't understand why there are queues everywhere. Why they can't move people. There must be a technology that would help us move people through fast.
It's a good point. And if you look at the airports, let's take Heathrow or Gatwick, for example, where they've obviously been having issues in the last few days. They are getting better, by the way. We are seeing those queues reduce a bit and the airports get more staff in, and that's been one of the fundamental problems. But one of the issues has been that we seem to have forgotten how to travel. Because so many people haven't travelled over the last 2 years, we're going back to the airports with full cases, lots of hand luggage, lots of bottles and creams over 100 millilitres, which is the limit, of course, in your hand luggage, and we're not packing properly. So what's happening is there are fewer staff doing the security processing, and we've got all the wrong stuff in our hand luggage. So it's no wonder that the queues are building up. And that's one of the main reasons why it's happening. And we just stand there, don't we? We expect to get away. We expect to get away on time, and we're prepared to put up with the queuing. But yeah, as I say, if you look at other countries like Singapore and others, they have seamless technology which enables you to go through much more quickly. The good news is that Heathrow is trialling a machine at the moment that enables you just to walk through with your luggage, your hand luggage, and you don't have to unpack everything. You don't have to take out the laptop or the creams or the bottles, and it's speeding things up. So the sooner we can get more of those machines in place at our airports around the UK, the better.
Absolutely. Paul, really good to see you this morning. Thank you. Where are you off to tonight?
I'm off to the Philippines for business, for a summit, actually, so pretty long journey.
Yeah, we'll be very.
Good luck at the airport.
Yes.
Good to see you. I love this iris scanning thing.
Well, I think anything that speeds things up, because it's actually becoming off-putting. You actually think, I'd love to go on holiday, I'd love to go to the sun somewhere, but I can't face the journey.
Yeah.
And that is such a shame. Didn't used to be this bad. It seems to be much worse now. I think a lot of it's COVID. Until just recently, you've had to fill in so many forms, and then you're at the end of a long queue, and you're thinking, everything to prove my worthiness is on my phone, but I'm running out of battery. Have I got enough battery to get me there? It's a worry. Everything's a worry at the moment, and that's why the queues are so long, because people are getting really agitated.
Yes, but Paul made a good point. If you are heading to the airports and things, careful how you pack. Don't forget the basic rules. And that speeds it up for everybody, and not just yourself. Do stay with us. We've got lots more still to come as we cough and grumble our way through all of this.
Yes, indeed.
We bring the very latest from Ukraine and a warning from President Zelensky.
Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking cloudy, misty and murky at first in the west, dry and bright elsewhere. Let's take a look at the details. Southwest England will start the day with low cloud, mist, fog and possibly some drizzle at times, although this will tend to turn back to the coasts through the morning. In contrast, the southeast of England will start the day dry and bright with plenty of sunshine on offer for all. Wales will also have a rather cloudy start, particularly near the coast where patchy mist, fog or drizzle is possible, drier and brighter inland. In the Midlands, cloud will also bring hill fog and the odd spot of rain over the higher ground to the north of the central belt, but there will also be some sunny spells. It'll be rather cloudy in the northwest and northeast of England too. It'll also brighten up though through the morning. Scotland will see similar conditions to the rest of the country, with temperatures reaching 16 degrees by midday. Northern Ireland will also have a cloudy, misty and rather murky start to the day, especially near eastern coasts. However, it will steadily brighten up here through the morning. And that's your forecast for your Easter Saturday.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
$7:26, very good morning to you. This is Breakfast with Stephen and Anne, live across the UK on your TV and on your radio.
Now, Moscow has sent a diplomatic note formally warning the USA and other allied nations against supplying weapons to Ukraine.
Now, this comes after President Zelensky warned in a TV interview that the world should be prepared for the possibility that Russia will target Ukraine with a nuclear strike.
Well, let's talk to Ewan Grant now, a former intelligence analyst of ex-Soviet states. What is this formal warning that they've given? What would it have said?
It's apparently, the phrase was new to me. Apparently it's called a démarche, which is a formal diplomatic term for the kind of diplomatic note that they used to send ultimatums, we used to call it, or ultimata. It is making public, as of course Britain and America have played to a great success of making certain behind-the-scenes things public, what Russia, of course, has been saying in private. We're very unhappy and we reserve the right to escalate, basically.
That's what it should say?
Yeah, that is the meaning, and they put it on the table. So if it does happen, they can turn around to the world, and particularly their own people, and say, well, we did tell you, we did warn you. So
Because of this, it puts into perhaps a little bit more context the warning from President Zelensky.
Exactly. You rightly linked those two together. As you know, the concerns about a possible nuclear demonstration, we might call it, demonstration of a nuclear weapon have been around for some weeks now. No coincidence that the CIA director has just warned about this. Yes, they are intimately linked.
But how real is that threat?
Well, I will quote, with attribution, I don't steal people's work, one of your most powerful contributors, Philip Ingram, who was on yesterday. Last week, and this was a public event, his remarks were open to the public. I think he put an excellent summary. I mean, Philip doesn't miss much at all. He didn't think it was that close. Of course, that's a week ago, and we've had these sinking of the cruiser since, and other Ukrainian successes. It would not go down well with India and China, but then again, that might not break the link there. And he went into considerable detail about how it could be done. Essentially a demonstration that we're prepared to use nuclear weapons.
Which would be what then? How would you do that? Are you talking it's like a small tactical or something like that?
Yeah, this has been one of the big developments of the last 10 years. Russia has deployed many more than the West, and that's a major factor which should have been picked up earlier. They're called ultra-low yield weapons. So they're almost on the threshold of conventional and nuclear. So they're easier to use. You know, the threshold has come down. One point, so that was particularly what Philip was saying. He thought it could be used around Chernobyl, which is already exactly already irradiated. So you're not contaminating something which is uncontaminated. The encouraging point, if indeed you can say that, is that he was very confident that monitoring systems would pick this up.
Right.
So,
How does that work? You mean monitoring systems would pick it up, what, before it's launched?
Radiation in the atmosphere.
All right, so we would have absolute confirmation it happened.
He said that with a high degree
Oh
of
yes, they
confidence.
can tell even where the blinking nuclear
the flash
was made. They can tell all sorts of things, can't they? But that means that if the Russians did do it, they would simply be doing it first of all as a show, as a demonstration that they've got them and they will use them.
Most likely, yes.
So that raises the question, though, as to, I mean, with that sort of demonstration, how the West then responds. And actually, also, what I really wanted to put to you, when I think of it, is what would that do in the Kremlin? What would that do to the advisors, to the generals, to those people around Putin who can see the potential of this really escalating?
Well, I think that would depend on our replies back, which would have to be coordinated and a common theme from everyone, not just the United States, of course, above all the United States, with Britain not that far behind. We'd need to say that this was the real hammer of economic sanctions. The oil would go, basically turn Russia into a hermit kingdom for trade purposes, and get that public and get that in advance.
Will this be a strategy? Will this be a sort of intelligence service strategy to try and do whatever is possible to get Putin to be self-toppled?
I think, well, it's a game of chess, it's a game of psychology. Let's not exaggerate the role of intelligence services in that. There are still politicians, and there are still politicians with strategic nous. It's a whole of society thing. Yes, I think so. This would be the one that would really worry the security and military services in Russia. Where is all this going to end?
Oh, it's fascinating to talk to you and Grant.
It is.
Thank you.
It's utterly chilling, but it does make you understand why President Zelensky appears to be, making even more dramatic pleas to
exactly so
end this somehow now.
Yeah, there should have been more heavy weapons delivered earlier. But having said that, we're not doing too bad a job. But it's selective. Some countries are doing their bit, including, let's not forget, some of the smaller countries, particularly in Eastern Europe. France and Germany still have a lot to answer for.
But if any of these low yield, as you put it, nuclear strategic weapons are used, tactical, sorry, yeah,
low tactical,
right, thank you.
Yeah, the language is changing.
Yes, if they were used, I mean, it's the European countries close to Ukraine and close to Russia who will feel more vulnerable than the United States, for instance, won't they? So they're going to be more reluctant to take any decision to retaliate with nuclear.
I wouldn't see a low-yield tactical nuke inside Ukraine against Ukrainian forces or a demo as leading to a nuclear response from NATO. I don't think
you don't.
And of course, that's why the Russians would do it.
Oh, it's interesting.
President Steinmeier, just before I came in, I looked at my weekly Der Spiegel magazine newsletter, Goldmine there. And basically, the German president, who of course was turned down for a visit to Kiev, has got his alibi in. He's given an interview to Der Spiegel, and he's getting his alibi in about why I was taken in. He's admitted he was taken in by Putin. Yeah.
Oh, that's
he's quoted as saying, "I thought he had a remnant of rationality."
Right.
That's a very German approach, and it was totally wrong.
Oh, my goodness.
And I've seen how they got it wrong over the years in Ukraine.
Fascinating stuff.
But also terrifying.
Yeah, but also terrifying. Ewan, thank you very much.
What one world leader says about another in those terms, that's awful to hear, isn't it?
Part of the problem I have, is I spend a lot of my time reading spy novels. CIA, MI5, all that sort of stuff. And so I could... Oh, everyone's a bit of paper. So it's... there you go, there's a pen. I'm getting a secret note, which I won't be able to tell you about because it'll be encrypted probably. But a lot of that, you wonder how much of it is based in reality and all of that.
Yeah.
What do you think? Are you nodding?
Well, and as they say, it's there's nothing stranger than the truth sometimes of what is actually happening in the world.
Yeah.
I don't know how long this note is going to take to write. Well, shall we take a quick break?
Yeah, we'll take a quick break.
We'll be back a bit later with the newspapers as well.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
7:38, you're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Anne live across the UK on both your TV and your radio.
Before we go to the papers, let me just read you this. This is from Jackie. I listen to GBNews every day, whether I'm upstairs, downstairs or in the car. I particularly love your show. This is a rundown of my day yesterday. Wake up early to you on TV. Then listen to you in car on way to hospital appointment. Listen to you on headphones whilst having my 3 weekly treatment. My little nurse said to me, whatever you're listening to, we all need some of that. You haven't stopped smiling. And it was the two of you with the lovely Stephanie. So uplifting.
Oh.
Isn't that lovely? Thank you so
that's
much.
really nice, Jackie, and I hope your treatment's going well.
Yeah.
How nice.
And we'll pass that on to Stephanie as well. She's in about a
You
few
really
minutes.
can take us anywhere.
Yeah.
Now, let's take you through the papers this morning. Former Conservative advisor Claire Pearsall and the late editor of the newspaper, Benjamin Butterworth, are both here. Good to see you both. Claire, speed limits in the Telegraph.
Yeah.
Or speed limiters, we should say.
Speed limiters. Now, this is quite interesting. The government wants to bring in speed limiters on cars to fall in with EU regulations, which I find very strange considering we've now left the EU and we can do our own thing. I'm not sure the sort of safety aspect of this, and Edmund King, the president of the AA, has sort of queried how safe this can actually be and the chaos on the roads. If the speed limit on the road, so if the technology telling your car from the road what the speed limit is and your car's software is not up to date, then surely this is going to be a problem. And we've seen that smart motorways don't particularly work, and I'm not sure that smart cars are really the way forward.
So what are they saying? They will absolutely limit you to the speed limit?
That's right, and it will reduce. So if you go from a 60-mile-an-hour limit down to a 40, then it would naturally reduce. And I can see the benefits of that when you're talking in urban areas, outside schools, then, yeah, I think that's a great idea. But I also don't feel that you need to take it away from the driver. I wouldn't feel particularly safe if my car was then pushing back against me, trying to get round something. Sometimes you do need to speed up, slow down against the speed limit. So I'm not convinced over this. I think
So you never tried it then? My car does this already.
Oh, you've got one?
Ah, you see, I don't have a very...
Well, all cars have speed limiters built in already because there is a rule no car can go faster than 155 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So all cars have that limit built in. It can be removed, technically. It's only like a computer program, but it can be removed already. But you see, in my car, like a lot of them now, I just set it onto Distronic Pilot or whatever it's called, and it goes at the speed limit. And if there's a car in front, it slows down, and if the speed limit changes, it alters. And
really?
So all I have to do is steer. It's very nice. But you can turn it off.
I would have thought this move is to put it in all new cars.
Yeah.
I think that's sort of devalued. I think people won't want it.
I mean, I've never driven a car, which is in the best interests of everyone who does drive cars.
OK.
But, you know, surely you must feel kind of out of control in a situation like that.
No, because there are always step rounds. So you can always take control.
Right.
But actually, it's very handy because it slows you down in plenty of space. The gaps between the cars are bigger and all. It's great.
But if there was an object coming at you and you really needed to put your foot down to get round it, would it let you do that?
Yeah.
Even in this proposal?
In this proposal, I would imagine there's probably got to be some sort of safety thing where you double clutch, not double clutch, double accelerate, and it'll cut through it. I would think.
it just takes away the whole experience of driving, and I think that's just such a wonderful thing. And I've been driving.
Yeah, but you shouldn't want to be driving over the speed limit.
No, you
shouldn't be wanting to drive over the speed limit. That's quite correct. But I also think that you need to be able to control a car, and I think to take that away from you, and you are literally just sitting there with a steering wheel, your attention is going to be elsewhere. It's going to be on the music, on the radio, or whatever. And I just worry that it takes away that sheer enjoyment and skill of driving.
No. Well, I would have to. I mean. I'm all with you. I like driving and I like the control, but I have to say, these systems don't actually take away your pleasure or your concentration, only because I use it every day. But,
and you know your cars.
I know my cars, but I know what you mean. You still want a bit of the freedom. So I mean, I'm not. Yeah.
A totally different subject in the Daily Mail.
It is.
Nude no more.
Well, here I am as your resident makeup correspondent for the morning. So, Stiller, I think is that how you pronounce it, which is an M&S makeup range, has, instead of the word nude to describe a colour that we would think of as sort of a whitey, creamy colour.
Creamy, beigey colour.
Instead, they're changing the names to opaline and almond rather than nude, because if your natural skin colour is not the ones of...
Yeah, if you're a black
me or
person,
you.
nude is a completely different colour.
Exactly. So they've changed this. And look, I have to say, I know a lot of people are probably going to look at this and think woke gone mad, and maybe that's what I am like. But it strikes me as quite a good idea because it quite simply isn't nude for a lot of people. And it's quite an outdated description, I would say. And I think the makeup market has been revolutionised actually in recent years to recognise that there are so many different skin colours and to have much better range for...
And it's not just makeup, though. I mean, you can buy all sorts of, clothing, any sort of clothing, not just underclothing, which is described as nude. And
But is
that's beige.
But is that not the point now, that nude isn't a description so much as a colour now?
Yeah, and I think that nude is for me, I think it's a description, and you can buy lingerie in different nude skin tones. And why don't you just think, well, my colour is going to be different to your colour, etc. And you look at that and you think, well, these nude sort of palettes that they have.
It was a trendy name, I suppose, when they first thought of it. It's sort of slightly edgy name. But it actually wasn't accurate at all.
No. Exactly.
It's a bit... No, I'm not keen on this.
I think it's one of those things that actually I'd never thought of it, and I dare say most black people had never had any great worry about the word. But when you think about it, it is actually quite an odd way to describe something that it is not nude for a massive number of people.
Absolutely.
I don't know if we get a bit worked up about these things. I remember when I first started working in TV and I had to do my own powder, and the powder they gave me was called Sun Frolic. Which was... I ended up looking like our backdrop, really. It was orange. I looked Trump-esque. But Sun Frolic.
Maybe they'll bring out a new colour called Trump. What colour would that be?
Yeah, it goes orange, but you've got white bits around your eyes. Just a very quick look at the Mail working from home, Claire.
Yeah, now this is always going to divide opinion, and I have to say, for transparency reasons, I'm in the office 2 days a week in Westminster. So, but, I'm not working in a civil service department such as the DVLA, where there are enormous delays because people are at home, they can't access the paperwork. So I do think civil servants need to get back to the office. I think there is a way that you can hybrid work, but at the moment it doesn't look like it's working. So, yeah, they need to get back in, get off their pelotons, get back to the office.
Yes, no, I tend to agree with you. Look, we've got to leave it there for now. Claire, Benjamin, thank you both very much indeed.
Now, Emmanuel Macron and Marine Le Pen will face off in round 2 of the national elections in France on April the 24th. Marine Le Pen has pledged to hold a referendum on reinstating the death penalty if she's elected French president, and has vowed to let the people speak on issues that matter to them.
Macron has called this proposal an aberration. Well, let's talk to Paris-based journalist David Chazin, who joins us now. Look, really good to see you this morning. I mean, is there a sense that Marine Le Pen is trying to absolutely capitalise on what many were expecting to be perhaps a very, very close race in the next couple of weeks?
Well, definitely. I mean, this is the first time in modern French history that you've got a far-right candidate with a realistic chance of winning. Now, Emmanuel Macron is still the favourite. Polls are placing him around 53% of the vote and Marine Le Pen about 47 at the moment. But not all of the polls agree. Some of them put them closer, even within the margin of error. So with just a week to go before the final vote, there's everything to play for. And Marine Le Pen is campaigning very hard. And so is Emmanuel Macron. He's thrown himself into the campaign. He hardly bothered at all before the first round vote. But when he saw that close result, he realised that he's got to really go for it with just a week to go. So later today, we're going to see Emmanuel Macron holding a big rally in Marseille on the south coast. And he'll be trying to reach out to left-wing voters, because the far-left candidate, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, who was knocked out of the contest in the first round, still took 22% of the vote. So those are the votes that can swing this election, either for Emmanuel Macron or for Marine Le Pen. And it may seem paradoxical, but up to a third of Mélenchon voters may decide to vote for Marine Le Pen, going from the far left to the far right.
I mean, this idea of reinstating the death penalty, are the French people likely to get behind that?
Well, I think this is something that will appeal to the core supporters of Marine Le Pen. It's certainly something that could be close to their hearts because she's a law and order candidate, and there are people who feel that there's too much crime, there's too much violence on the streets. It's something that's designed to appeal to them. But whether it will actually have broader appeal is still very much open to question. I mean, Marine Le Pen doesn't just want to hold a referendum on reinstating the death penalty. She also wants constitutional change so that she can put French citizens first when it comes to jobs, housing and benefits. And that's a very big part of her platform. Emmanuel Macron is arguing that if she carries out her plan to hold referendums by presidential decree, they would be legally invalid because under the Constitution, a referendum has to be approved by Parliament and voted on in Parliament. So it's going to be interesting to see how these two candidates face off. On Wednesday, there'll be a televised debate. Now, 5 years ago, Marine Le Pen was roundly defeated by Emmanuel Macron in a similar debate. This time, she'll be probably a lot better prepared. So a lot of people will be watching to see how she performs in that.
That'll be interesting. OK, David, thank you very much indeed. Catch up with you, no doubt, at some point over the next couple of weeks.
Thank you. It's interesting because it's 3 years ago today that Notre Dame burned down. Yeah. I did a special programme on it just a few weeks ago. Macron has vowed that it will be rebuilt completely by 2024. And they're doing very, very well. It's looking good.
Oh.
It's looking very good.
I believe 3 years.
I know.
Where does time go?
Flies
by. It flies by. Anyway, look, time for all the very latest showbiz news this morning. Time to be cheered up a little bit by Miss Stephanie Tetchy. Good morning.
Good morning. And I'm loving the turquoise.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
yeah, it is, isn't it? Yeah.
But I'll tell you what it's not.
What?
It's Valentino.
Oh, hello.
Oh, sorry, no, it's not. It was $10 in a little boutique in Antigua.
Oh, very nice. But because Meghan Markle's gone all Valentino, hasn't she?
Yeah, so like a phoenix rising from the ashes.
Well, you think so. She's on the front page of absolutely every
newspaper today. So she made a mighty comeback to Europe yesterday. Well, to the Invictus Games for her first appearance, and she meant business. She was in a white Valentino suit. The blazer cost £2,000 and the trousers cost £1,000, but she was in head-to-toe white, and also she was dripping in almost £300,000 worth of jewellery. So she had the engagement ring that Harry got her. Apparently she was wearing Princess Diana's Cartier watch as well.
Yes, recognise the watch.
And she was wearing the earrings as well, £12,000 earrings.
And she's got this new thing called a chain that goes around your fingers and your hand.
Like, I think it's called a hand anklet and stuff. But no doubt, you know, when the royals wear something, no doubt that's going to be in fashion now and everybody's going to want to be wearing it. But it's quite interesting. The papers have saying maybe she drew inspiration from Kate last month when she went to Jamaica and she was wearing an Alexandra McQueen white suit.
Right.
So
I doubt she looks at pictures of Kate and thinks, I'm going to do that. I doubt. She just looked fabulous. I mean, she did. She absolutely looked wonderful in a beautiful, beautiful trouser suit.
Yeah.
I can't help but look at her and think, what's behind the smile? Is she really feeling it, or is she like not very happy?
Because she's an actress. Well, she was an actress. I feel like she has that almost Hollywood smile. Like she just looks so innocent and
well, of course, she is being filmed all the time.
Yeah,
they're being followed wherever they go by a crew filming for their Netflix documentary.
And they signed like I think £112 million deal for Netflix. So very much so. I think they're going to be at the command of Netflix during this trip. But Meghan's only going to be there till Monday, and Harry will be doing the.
But isn't it odd that they said they wanted to get away from the public glare and you know, the cameras, and they've chosen this big deal event to be filmed all the time?
Well, maybe, you see, being filmed all the time like that, they should get themselves in the Big Brother house.
Oh, gosh. Are we fans of Big Brothers? Did you used to watch it?
I worked for Channel 4 in 2000 when it launched.
Yeah.
We did load on Big Breakfast News. We did loads and loads and loads of stuff on it.
Yeah.
And I got a bit bored after that.
Yeah, I think the first series was really good, and then by the time we got to like series 10 or 12, I was just like, this is enough for me. But today, one of the big reports in the newspaper is that Big Brother's set to come back in 2023.
Who's going to have it then?
Well, it's not going to be on Channel 5, it won't be on Channel 4, but it's going to go on ITV2. So they're planning to bring it back after Love Island so that they can attract a younger audience. And you know, before they used to do like the celebrity version, this is just only going to be a version for the public. And as we've known in the past, the public have gone there and made their name. So we've had people like Alison Hammond, Jade Goody, Josie Gibson. So this series, they're saying, is going to be quite explosive, but they really want to attract that younger demographic.
I wonder who's going to host it,
I hope it's Davina. Come on.
that would be great.
You need Davina to do it, definitely. But I hope it's...
I mean, it always had an audience. It really did, a very loyal audience.
And now that it's had a break, because the last time it was on TV was in 2018, so I think people will be curious at least to see if they can bring it back with a bang.
I wonder if they can be a bit more racy on it, because a friend of mine...
Well, it's going to have to be, isn't it?
A friend of mine used to be one of the directors.
Oh.
Of course, they've got people there 24/7. And he said the stuff that they see as they walk through, look through the glass, the stuff that they actually get up to that you couldn't show on television.
Oh. Really?
That was unbelievable.
Yeah.
It wasn't like that when I was on it. I was on it.
Did you do the celebrity one?
I did the celebrity one, yeah,
No
2000
way.
and something. I don't know, ages ago now. It was very tame. We were very tame. Actually.
Who's it wrong with?
Honestly,
it made an impression.
Yeah, it really did, yeah. The worst thing about it being, it was just so boring because you weren't allowed to do anything, read anything or anything like that.
Did they make things, did you get any arguments with anybody, or did they, like, amp things up for
No, we
entertainment?
didn't. We had, it was Take That. What's his name from Take That?
Oh.
Won it.
Oh, Mark Owen.
Mark won it, yeah. And you're looking it up now.
I'm trying to look
Who
it
was
up.
I on with? I can't remember.
It was 2002.
Yeah, gosh,
wow.
That's a long time ago.
Apparently, yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it gives your age and everything when you...
Well, of course it does.
It's terrible.
Would you go back again, Anne?
Couldn't lie about my age ever, could I? Because age comes up the first time you ever Google anyone now.
Would you go back again?
No, I wouldn't go. No, I would definitely not go back in. It was quite an experience, but it was very weird. They wouldn't even let you take your makeup, eyeliner or anything with you because you weren't allowed to write anything down in case you were sneaking messages out or anything like that.
Gosh, that would be a no-go.
And it just got very, very, very boring.
Yeah.
And they did that deliberately, so as to get you talking.
I would feel claustrophobic after a while.
And you had to earn your food by doing silly things,
Yeah,
you know.
that's a no for me.
Yeah, exactly. It was an absolute no for me,
we
too.
all deserve to be fed.
There you go. Oh, well. No, interesting stuff then. I bet that if you fancy a bit of that, let us know.
It'll come back. It always gets an audience, doesn't it? Yeah.
Oh, Stephanie, thank you.
Yes, I will be back.
I could see you in the bit. You'd be a hit. You'd be a smash.
Oh, my gosh. They'll probably label me as a diva.
Well, yeah.
I'm fine with that, actually.
Yeah. Lovely stuff.
Lovely
Stephanie,
one.
Thank you. Stay
Good
with
one.
us. We've got loads more to come for you in the next hour, so don't go anywhere.
Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking cloudy, misty and murky at first in the west, dry and bright elsewhere. Let's take a look at the details. Southwest England will start the day with low cloud, mist, fog and possibly some drizzle at times, although this will tend to turn back to the coasts through the morning. In contrast, the southeast of England will start the day dry and bright with plenty of sunshine on offer for all. Wales will also have a rather cloudy start, particularly near the coast where patchy mist, fog or drizzle is possible, drier and brighter inland. In the Midlands, cloud will also bring hill fog and the odd spot of rain over the higher ground to the north of the central belt, but there will also be some sunny spells. It'll be rather cloudy in the northwest and northeast of England too. It'll also brighten up though through the morning. Scotland will see similar conditions to the rest of the country, with temperatures reaching 16 degrees by midday. Northern Ireland will also have a cloudy, misty and rather murky start to the day, especially near eastern coasts. However, it will steadily brighten up here through the morning. And that's your forecast for your Easter Saturday.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
The Home Secretary believes other countries will follow the UK's Rwanda asylum proposals amid reports of a civil service backlash over the plan.
Morning to you, it's 8 o'clock on Saturday the 16th of April. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Anne.
And we're live across the whole of the UK on both your TV and your radio.
Coming up for you today, Priti Patel says the government's plan to send illegal migrants to Rwanda will serve as a blueprint, despite reports of a row in the Home Office and warnings from the UN Refugee Agency that it breaches international law.
The Duke and Duchess of Sussex will both speak on stage at the Invictus Games opening ceremony later today, just one day after the couple's first public appearance in Europe since quitting as senior working royals.
Easter Sizzler, the UK set for warm weather ahead of Easter Sunday after getting the hottest day of the year so far. We'll bring the latest live from Skegness.
And of course, you know by now, don't you? You can join in any of our discussions by emailing us, or letting us know where you are. Are you going out? How are you going to spend your Easter Saturday? It's gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet us at gbnews.
Well, let's start with the news that the Home Secretary believes that other countries will emulate the UK-Rwanda asylum scheme, noting that Denmark could be amongst those to reproduce the blueprint.
And this despite the UN's Refugee Agency saying the plans are a breach of international law.
Now, the UNHCR is accusing the government of shifting responsibility and evading international obligations.
Downing Street says migrants who arrive in Britain unlawfully could be sent to the East African country within 6 weeks.
It's a pilot scheme. It's costing $120 million. It's going to target single men, as apparently they make up the majority of the more than 28,000 people who crossed the Channel last year.
Priti Patel reportedly took a rare step of issuing what they call a ministerial directive to overrule the concerns of her own civil servants about whether the concept will actually deliver value for money. Well, earlier we spoke to Dr. Greg Mills, the former strategic advisor to the president of Rwanda and director from the Brenthurst Foundation, about the resistance to the plan.
Well, I think it's a highly transactional response to the refugee crisis in the UK, and essentially you're putting the responsibility on another country. Now, the problem here is that Rwanda, while it has a a very good record at development and a very good record at relative economic prosperity, and it's an accessible place, at least for foreign visitors, and something of a favorite among certain sort of rock stars in the aid and development industry. It has an appalling human rights record. It ranks with 22 points out of 100, for instance, on Freedom House's index on political freedoms, which puts it in about the same space as Russia, for instance. Now, you wouldn't be sending your refugees to Russia to see them catered for and cared for. So why, you would ask, are you sending them to Rwanda? And I think the answer is simply that the Rwandese are willing to have them, they're willing to process them, and they're willing to do so because they're getting £120 million in return. And it seems, I think, frankly, a way of shifting the blame to another place, to another country, or shifting the problem, should I say, rather, and rather than having to deal with it at source. And you really, to deal with the refugee crisis, and particularly the refugee crisis from sub-Saharan Africa, which is responsible for most refugees in the world today, not most of those coming to the UK, by the way, but you have to really deal with it at source. And dealing with it at source means essentially improving the political conditions in the countries that are supplying these refugees to enable the economies, in turn, to ensure conditions of prosperity. I think people are probably, the push factors on refugees are probably great enough that they will regardless take a chance. I mean, these are people fleeing terrible conditions, whether they be terrible economic conditions or political repression. They probably suffice to push them to the UK or to somewhere better in Europe. And I think the hazardous nature of the journeys that they're willing to undertake is an illustration of that desperation. So I'm not sure if the possibility of them ending up in Rwanda will be a deterrent. I think it's just simply shifting the problem elsewhere on the part of the UK. And I do think there is a moral question here, which is these are people who have obviously fleeing conditions, and they may just be in search of a better life, but certainly a safer life. And then essentially you're putting them into a place whereby they may not, in fact, be experiencing the conditions for a better life or a safer life at all. And I really don't believe it has a deterrent value among people who are this desperate.
And that was Greg Mills there talking about the Rwanda asylum solution. Is it a solution for you? It seems to still be very controversial.
It does, doesn't it? He's clearly not keen.
No.
He's looking at the moral aspect of all of this. UNHCR doesn't seem to be very happy about it all. The voters
Well, it's a vote winner. The May elections will tell us. I think they'll tell the government whether or not that's generally seen as a vote winner. At least it's something decisive, I suppose a lot of people might think.
A lot of people seem to be saying, well, something needs to be done. You've got to do something. It might be a bit unpalatable, but...
It does feel uncomfortable, but then the whole situation is uncomfortable. You're dealing with human beings at the end of the day, aren't they? You don't know who they are, really, what their motives are. You have no idea. Probably so many of them are just like you and me, but you never know. Thank you for all your views. We've got lots of lovely views coming in. Happy Easter to the team, says Madeline. Love the programme. Yesterday, I invited friends for a cuppa, hot cross buns, and I made chocolate muffins with little Easter eggs on top. We chatted and laughed and had a wonderful time.
See, isn't that good for the soul?
Oh,
Isn't
wonderful.
that good for the soul? Not just the muffins.
And Clive, no, not just the Easter eggs. Clive said, what a great start to the Easter weekend to see you both. Thank you. Nice to hear from you too. He says, great show. I can't wait to put you guys on in the morning at 6 o'clock and hear the national anthem. It's just
lovely,
great.
isn't it?
Now, if you have never really switched us on at 6 o'clock in the morning, try it to see what you think, because we do play the national anthem. And I, at first, thought, it's a bit old-fashioned thing to do, playing the national anthem. Do you remember how it always used to? It used to be on in the evening at shutdown, television shutdown.
You did. You said that just before we started, and then once we started doing it, let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, because we saw a lovely montage of the
absolutely
British
beautiful
countryside,
views.
And Anne sits there doing this.
I conduct it every morning.
Every morning?
It's
Just
just
every morning?
gorgeous. It's
lovely.
It's lovely because we show the most beautiful views of Britain, and it's just lovely. It's something to celebrate. Clive also says, love your tie today, Stephen.
Oh, thank you
nice
very
one.
much.
He says, I know you're working, but have a great Easter.
Yeah.
We will.
We will. We will. I know it's sometimes you're working, but it's got to be done. It's got to be done. Patricia says, morning, Anne and Stephen. My sister and myself spent the day in sunny, beautiful Sidmouth yesterday, having cream teas outside in the sun and just relaxing, watching everyone having fun on the beach. We travelled from the Midlands with no traffic jams. The day was perfect and the weather helped. Oh, good.
Yeah, that's really
worked out for
lovely.
you.
Yeah. John says, no one says the problems with lack of staff at our airports is that they are paid peanuts. The people checking our bags are paid less than those working in the bars at Leeds Bradford Airport, so I'm told. I'm sure lots of former airport employees have found better paid jobs since lockdown. Only one way to sort that. But he says, I enjoy your programme. Best morning news show on TV. Thank you
very much.
Thank you,
indeed.
John.
Actually, you can vote. There's an awards ceremony thing coming up. You can vote for this programme on there. There you go. Do a bit of Googling.
What, the Thingy
Trick
Awards?
Award, the Trick Awards.
The Television and Radio Industries Club.
Yes,
Awards.
we're up for an award.
We're up for an award?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes, best breakfast programme.
Oh, that's lovely. Ooh,
So
yeah. Get voting.
You can always vote for us on there if you like. Whether we'll win or not, who knows? But it would be quite nice.
It would be lovely.
Nice to get an honourable mention.
Yeah, that's fashion.
We shall see. Look, it is 9 minutes past 8. Let's bring you up to date with the headlines. And there were Russian casualties in the sinking of the warship Moskva in the Black Sea, according to US government sources. The US says it happened after Ukraine hit the vessel with Neptune anti-ship missiles. The Kremlin says it was all down to stormy seas and an ammunition explosion.
The Duke and Duchess of Sussex will speak at the Invictus Games opening ceremony in the Netherlands later. The televised event follows Thursday's visits to the Queen and the Prince of Wales in Windsor.
And health officials are warning that some Kinder chocolate products linked to a salmonella outbreak should not be eaten this Easter weekend. The UK Health Security Agency has issued alerts for Kinder Surprise, Kinder Mini Eggs and Kinder Chocobons. So if you are heading away out and about, so if you're going to go away for the weekend, you probably did it yesterday, but maybe you're just heading out for the day. But it's going to be, we expect, pretty busy. We're expecting 22 million car journeys across the UK this weekend as we all sort of rush out to our little holiday destinations.
Well, to tell us what travellers are expecting to face today is Will Hollis, who has bravely made it to Skegness for us this morning. Hi there, Will.
Good morning. Yes, the RAC estimating 22 million leisure journeys, so that's people specifically going for visits to holiday destinations, coastal towns, as well as those inland tourist destinations as well. Around 27 million journeys still being made, so people that unfortunately are having to go to work over the Easter period. Now, we did see yesterday that was the busiest day, around 4 million visits, 4 million journeys being made yesterday for Good Friday. It is going to be a little bit quieter today, about 3.6 million as people do get out on the roads. There are a couple of things to watch for, of course. There are the fact that there's the big FA Cup semi-final, Manchester City versus Liverpool, so you can expect a little bit of trouble around the M6 and around the M25. You can expect a bit of trouble as well on the M20. Lots of lorries backed up there on the way to Dover. Problems with the ferries because of everything that happened with P&O ferries. If you are coming to places like Skegness, where we are, where it is still a little bit quiet, it is only the 8 o'clock hour, you can expect that you might find some problems with parking. We were told by the people that we're meeting here today, the local councillors, that if you want to get to Skegness, even if you're coming here as a journalist, even if you're coming here and filming, get here as early as you can because the car parks are going to fill up. People are starting to arrive there. You can see the vans are here, opening up the different locations, opening up the sweet stores, the ice cream shops. The one gentleman out there riding his bicycle, getting out here in the summer sun, the spring sunshine, I should say. But that's the thing, it does feel quite summery. The cloud is starting to burn off, and I know it's the same in a lot of different locations around the country. It's going to be about 14, 15, 16 degrees, but bright sunshine, really nice here. A lot of places, though, in the low 20s. We did hear that news that yesterday for Good Friday we saw 22 or so degrees, the height in, I think, the south of the country, and it was the hottest day so far for Great Britain as it has been this year. But lots of people expected to come to local destinations like this. Tens of thousands of people heading to the coastline. Did you know it's 17 billion that these sorts of places put into the economy every year. That's at least before COVID. So as shops start to open, as people do come down here, we'll be speaking to people a little bit about how this bank holiday is going to be panning out, and hopefully see a lot of people that come from all over the Midlands as well as different areas around the country to celebrate their bank holiday.
Well, it looks like the weather's getting better because that jacket's unzipped, Will.
Exactly, that's a good sign. Yes,
That's
yes.
the way. We'll get that jumper off.
We haven't got
before
you in
know
your
it.
shorts yet, but we'll keep pushing it. But it's just so lovely to see the
shorts.
It's lovely to see the blue sky behind you, and you know the whole idea of the spacious seafront.
Oh,
It just looks gorgeous there.
I love the British seaside. There's just something about it. It's the smell and the deck chairs.
Have you ever lived at the seaside?
Well, where I'm from originally, near Barrow-in-Furness, of course, it's right on the Furness Peninsula, so it's right by the sea. We don't really have beaches and things up there, but we're right on the coast.
Yeah, Rocky Coast.
Rocky Coast.
Yeah,
it's lovely.
I used to live. I've always been a Midlander, so never been near the sea very much at all. But once, when I was a reporter, I was on the Bridgewater Mercury, and I had a flat in Burnham-on-Sea, right on the seafront.
Oh, nice.
But it was one of those beaches that drains completely into mud flats.
Yeah.
And then the sea comes in again. I mean, miles and miles you'll get when the sea's out. When the sea's in, it's right up against you. But it's just the sound of the seagulls, and the smell of the sea air. It's just gorgeous, isn't it? Does you good to see it. It really does. Yeah, and
Chips with lots of salt. And
does go with chips, doesn't it? Yeah. It's British holiday, isn't it?
It is.
It's the ultimate.
It is British. Have you ever knotted a handkerchief?
No, I haven't, but I do. I cannot sit on a beach without making sandcastles.
Oh,
you have to be creative with sand, don't you?
Yeah, I have knotted a handkerchief, and it works. You put the knots in, and then when you pull it down, it makes a lovely little hat.
Yeah, that's right. It's to stop your
bald
bonds.
patch.
Well, yeah,
Which
that's
I haven't
right.
got.
Burning. No, you haven't. Absolutely.
I had it all rearranged a few years ago.
No, it's been rearranged
Very
beautifully
good,
as well.
thank you.
With us now for what tips and tricks travellers may be able to use to avoid the mad rush is Lisa Francesca Nand, who's host of the Big Travel podcast. Hello there.
Hello, good morning.
You look sun-kissed, and I think you've already gotten away, haven't you?
I have. So I do normally live next to the Great British Seaside. I live in Brighton, or Hove, actually. But I'm here in Malaga on the Costa del Sol, where my parents live. And I got here a few days ago. I came from Paris. I got the Eurostar in the biggest queue I've ever seen, but it all went smoothly, apart from the massive queue. And spent a few days in Paris, and then now I'm here for a few days. So, yeah, sorry about that. But other people are here too. I'm not on my own.
I was going to say, is getting a flight from Paris easier than it is getting from the UK at the moment?
This is a very good question because, I really thought about it, and I haven't actually done an internal European flight for a long time. I base myself in the UK and fly out. And there was a queue, there was a long queue. It was EasyJet as well, but all the staffing issues seemed to be okay in Paris, at least. What was really interesting, and I know this sounds obvious, but I hadn't really thought about it, is that when I got to Malaga Airport, there were no checks whatsoever because, of course, it's EU, one EU place to another. So there were no COVID checks. I got my passport ready to go through the queue. There was no passport control. And I don't know why I hadn't, thought about that, because I cross land borders, quite often. But this was the first time in a long time I've done an inter-European flight. So it felt a lot more civilised, I have to say, not having to show my ID on the way in the country.
So, have you got any tips and tricks for us? I mean, clearly what you did is you got away early before the mad rush, even though, as you say, you did experience quite long queues. And that is the most obvious tip of all, is don't travel at exactly the same time that everybody else is travelling.
I think that is the obvious tip, but we don't have any choice, do we? And actually, when I was travelling, it was still peak periods because it's the school holidays, and of course that makes things very expensive. They're a lot wider than just the Easter weekend. But all the airports are saying that the flight cancellations are looking a lot better now. So if you had your flight cancelled, you should know it by now, and they should have made alternative arrangements for you. The only advice I can give in terms of going to the airports is leave a lot of time. I've had reports of people people waiting an hour and a half to get through security. I certainly, with the Eurostar, was waiting an hour and 15 minutes in the queue to get through passport control. But then I've had friends coming out of Gatwick this morning. They said it's absolutely smooth running. So although you might have to wait, it's not complicated. It's just a bit annoying. So I think take patience is probably my advice. And also, you know what I'm doing? I'm reframing it. This time last year, it was illegal to travel abroad. You couldn't go anywhere. And not many people were going away for the Easter bank holiday either. So that's what I'm doing, is I'm mentally reframing it, is that we're allowed to go places. You know, it's beautiful weather, we're free, we can do what we want. You might just be stuck in a bit of a queue while you're doing it.
Yes, in some respects, asking you for the best tips and tricks for an easy trip. We almost should have asked you about this 6 weeks ago, really, shouldn't we? I mean, is that one of the things we do need to plan ahead, actually?
I think planning ahead is always helpful, but not everyone can do it. And a lot of people have been saying to me, why haven't the airlines planned ahead? Because, you know, they knew that it was going to be busy. But to be fair, they only knew 4 weeks ago that all restrictions were easing. We've had a really difficult couple of years, you know, industry-wise, emotionally, people that have wanted to travel and can't. So I think everyone just needs to cut each other some slack and, you know, keep your fingers crossed and take a good attitude when you're travelling. But yeah, planning ahead, obviously, you know, does always help if you can do it.
Weather like in Malaga this morning?
It's lovely, it's beautiful, it's bare legs even into the evening. You know, in the UK, you have to take layers with you. Well, here, your bare legs and bare arms into the evening. So that feels, you know, really quite special. But in the UK, it's really lovely as well, isn't it?
It is.
It's very nice here at the moment. So what are you expecting when you travel back? It depends, I guess, where you're flying back into.
I'll be flying back into Gatwick, and that is a very good question, because looking at some of the cancellations yesterday from Gatwick, a lot of them were actually people returning. So we don't talk about that. We talk about, you know, having to get out of the country. Oh, thank goodness we can get out of the country. We don't want to talk about what happens when we get back. And a lot of the problems at Manchester Airport that I'm sure you've heard about have been ground handling staff and people waiting 2 hours for their suitcases when people come back into the country. Now, we're hoping that, you know, by the end of the Easter holiday, the school Easter holiday, those problems will have been solved. But who knows? I think what I can do is when I'm back next week, I'll come on again and tell you how it goes. But if my flight's cancelled, I'm lucky that I can be flexible. I've got my parents here. I'm a freelancer. You know, I don't have a job per se to get back to. That's not always the case for other people. So it must be very frustrating if your flight is cancelled and you're stuck in another country.
Baggage only.
Hand baggage only is quite a good thing to do, I think, if you can, but it's not always practical, is it? You know, when you're going away for a week or so. So I am hand baggage only, but I've got a wheelie suitcase and I'll be travelling on my own with 2 young children. So it's not easy. It's not easy, but it's worth it.
At least you don't have to wait by the carousel for your baggage to come round.
That's very true. At least
there is that, but then you do have to carry it, don't you?
You do, yes. Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Oh, that's all right. We've managed that. At least, Francesca, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. I mean, I tend to always go just cabin.
I try to, yeah.
Just because I suppose the cost, it's cheaper.
It makes you a more efficient packer as well. It means that you're less likely to take all those clothes with you on holiday that you never wear.
Oh, yeah.
The only problem is a nice sun hat. I have a wardrobe of sun hats. You know, ones with big brims because I love them.
Can't you wear that onto the plane?
Yeah, well, you have to, but everybody looks, you know. And where do you put it when you're sitting on the plane? That's the only big problem, is what you do with a sun hat.
It's not a problem I've ever had. Oh, that music went very quickly. It's not a problem I've ever had. There you go.
Well, you're talking about the knotted handkerchief. Doesn't take up much room, does it?
It doesn't. No, you can put
I'll have to try that
in your pocket and get away with it. Look, stay with us. We've got plenty more to come for you this morning, including the latest on a warning from President Zelensky.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle, and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
8:24 morning to you. This is Breakfast with Stephen and Anne, live across the UK on your TV and on your radio and online right around the world.
Now, Moscow has sent a diplomatic note formally warning the US and other allied nations against supplying weapons to Ukraine.
Now, this comes after President Zelensky warned in an interview that the world should be prepared for the possibility that Russia will target Ukraine with a nuclear strike.
Well, Patrick Benham-Crosswell is a former army officer and military expert, now a freelance author and mediator, and joins us now. Patrick, why do you think President Zelensky has said this? Is it to do with that diplomatic note that Russia has sent to the US?
Well, it's always been the case that Russian military doctrine views the transition to nuclear warfare as a more fluid thing rather than the Western view of significant steps being taken. The Russians are bogged down. If they want to break out from where they're bogged down, then a nuclear weapon might do it. The West wouldn't need to use a nuclear weapon to do that because our artillery and other firepower is somewhat more effective.
It's a terrifying prospect, but talk us through what it might actually mean, because it's not a nuclear. It's unlikely to be, I guess, a nuclear weapon as we sort of generally think of them, isn't it?
Well, I mean, a nuclear weapon is a very large bang, and that gives you a blast of light and a blast of radiation, and then a very significant shockwave. And the net result is Hiroshima or Nagasaki, and that's what we've all seen. A tactical nuclear weapon is a little bit smaller than that, perhaps half of Hiroshima, and usually they would be airburst and they would seek to destroy enemy in perhaps a square kilometre or thereabouts. If the enemy's sitting in armoured vehicles, then unless they're very, very close, they'll probably survive and be able to fight on in some way, shape or form. The thing that everyone worries about with nuclear weapons is fallout, and that's really made up of two things. First, it's the residue of the fissile material, which is not a huge amount. But if the fireball touches the ground, it then sucks up and irradiates a large amount of dirt, and then you will get a cloud of fallout drifting on the wind and gently landing on whatever in its way, very much like the cloud from Chernobyl did. Well, of course, that means that the difficult bit about nuclear weapons is making sure the wind's blowing the right way for a much longer period than you'd be worried about chemical weapons.
I mean, what we're seeing in the Ukraine at the moment is terrifying enough with what we call conventional weapons. If President Putin were to consider just sort of upping the ante, calling our bluff maybe, and deploying one of those weapons you've just described there, how tactically would he do that? Where would they choose to do it?
That is a very good question, and I'm not in the mind of Mr. Putin. How they do it, they probably deliver it by missile. They've got missiles that are perfectly capable of delivering one accurately, and indeed that's what they were designed for, the asylum missile. You either drop it where you want to make a breakthrough and take the risk that you're going to have to go through that carnage, but all military vehicles are designed to be able to, all military armoured vehicles are designed to be able to operate in irradiated areas without too much problem. He might go for more effective, perhaps, is dropping it on a reserve concentration of the Ukrainian forces, which, if you like, would make the Ukrainians' life a lot harder and distract them while he attacked. Or he might go for a demonstration, drop it in some relatively underpopulated countryside, of which there's plenty in Ukraine, and say, I'm angry now, it would be a good time to surrender.
What sort of response would we see, do you think, from the West?
I suspect we would throw our teddy bears out of the cot big time. And I would have thought that if there was one thing that was likely to get the West to pitch in on the destroy the Russian invasion side, it would be the use of a nuclear weapon. Albeit, of course, we'd then be getting scarily close to World War III that, you know, me and my contemporaries spent quite a lot of time trying to stop happening.
OK, Patrick Bedham-Crosswell, good to get your expertise, as always. Thank you.
Gosh, thank you very much.
The Cold War getting hot, isn't it?
Yes, it is, isn't it? It's still terrifying. I mean, I know that the war has been going on for how many weeks now?
It's about 7 now, isn't
it? You know, a lot of people are saying we're almost getting used to it every day. I don't think we are, actually. But with the Ukrainians doing so well and being so brave and pushing back the Russians so successfully in certain parts, I think we were beginning to be optimistic about the outcome. And then suddenly we get this again, this threat.
I wonder what the youth make of it. Anyone under, I don't know, 40 or something now who aren't familiar with the old, you know, the old 3-minute warnings and all that sort of thing, which we all used to be very aware of, didn't we? Which was, it was terrifying.
It's interesting as well, isn't it, that the nuclear bombs that destroyed Hiroshima and Nagasaki and ended the war because they were so terrible and terrifying, that the whole technology of nuclear weaponry has moved on. And now we have these smaller, more tactical, not so destructive, but still nuclear weapons.
Which is, if he uses it as a demonstration, as you and Grant was saying earlier on, that would be perhaps one thing. But if they go for anything larger... And actually, the Nagasaki and all that, I mean, they're tiny. Their yield was tiny compared to what we have nowadays.
But they're more tactical nowadays.
More tactical,
yeah.
Unless we go for the big boys.
But that's what I mean. Do we then start this business of they use a smaller tactical one, we do, they do, and then it builds and builds and builds into something that we all feared initially.
But you've just got to hope at that point someone decides they're going to get rid of Putin on the Russian side, because it would end up being, you know, it's the mutually assured destruction argument, isn't it, which we'd be heading towards. Who thought we'd be talking about this in 2022?
I can't believe it. Can't believe it, really.
Let's hope none of this comes to pass. Look, do stay with us, because we've got plenty more to come. We'll take you to this look at the future England Test cricket captain, because Joe Root has gone. We'll tell you more in a couple of minutes.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle, and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
8:33, morning to you. You may be watching Breakfast with Stephen and Anna. Perhaps you're listening to us as you're heading out on your Easter day out or something.
Yeah, we'd love to hear where you're going and how you're managing to get there. Shall we bring you up to date with today's news headlines? The Shadows Prisons Minister is calling for judges to be given more power to force criminals to attend their sentencing hearings. Labour's Ellie Reeves says people want to see those who've committed horrendous crimes held to account for what they've done.
Home Secretary says other countries, including Denmark, could follow the UK's Rwanda asylum plan. Priti Patel made the comments despite reports of a civil service row over the reforms and warnings from the UN Refugee Agency that it breaches international law.
There were Russian casualties in the sinking of that warship, Moskva, in the Black Sea. That's according to senior US government sources. They say it happened after Ukraine hit the vessel with 2 Neptune anti-ship missiles. But the Kremlin denies the claims, saying it was all down to stormy seas and an ammunition explosion.
The Duke and Duchess of Sussex will speak at the Invictus Games opening ceremony in the Netherlands later. The event follows the visit on Thursday to the Queen and the Prince of Wales in Windsor.
And health officials are warning that certain Kinder chocolate products linked to the salmonella outbreak should not be eaten this Easter weekend, so check. The UK Health Security Agency has issued the alert for Kinder Surprise, Kinder Mini Eggs and Kinder Chocobons.
Thousands of people with Parkinson's disease will be given smartwatches to remind them to take their medication and monitor movements. NHS England says the watch sends signals about the patient's activity to doctors and buzzes when they need to take their pills.
Well, it's time to go through the papers now. And joining us this morning, former Conservative advisor Claire Pearsall and late editor of the I newspaper, Benjamin Butterworth. Morning to both of you.
Morning.
And she's all over the newspapers today. Who would have thought? Meghan, Claire.
Yeah, I think this is really interesting. So Meghan and Harry have said that in due course, in a matter of time, they will bring over Lilibet, who is 10 months old, and Archie, who is now 2, to come and meet the Queen. And it's a real shame the Queen has never met her namesake.
Yeah.
And you think, you can do it over Zoom, as many families have had to. But I really think that they need to do this. It's the Jubilee, the Platinum Jubilee year. It would just make everything so much nicer if they brought the children over, see their great-grandmother. I mean, wouldn't that just be a lovely story to have this
I think when there's a rift in the family, and unfortunately they literally moved away so far, it's very difficult to just sort of bump into each other and maybe keep things going. But at least if they made the visit on Thursday and said hello to the Queen and even Prince Charles. Maybe that's the start of a bridge building?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think this is the start of something, and it's really important that you take these steps a little bit slowly when there's been a rift like this. You can't just rush in and pretend nothing has happened and pretend everything is fine, because it clearly isn't. But I just, I think it would be so lovely, and I think it'd be lovely for the country. They've not done themselves any favours with what they've done, and it might buy back a little bit of good favour for them. And, I think for the Queen, it's just will be the best thing after the years that she has had.
I would agree.
They could do that for her, couldn't they? There's going to be a balcony moment at some point during that platinum celebration. And it would be nice to see them all on the balcony looking as though they quite like each other.
I don't know. I mean, look, I think it would be lovely if they met Lilibet. I think it's kind of repugnant that they haven't introduced Lilibet to the Queen. And you can imagine, it's not a pleasant thing to think about, but the Queen's 95 years old. She's been relatively open about her poor health in the last year since losing her husband. It's clear that any 95-year-old doesn't have very long left. And you can imagine if you were Lilibet and you grew up having never got that photo with the Queen.
Right, yeah.
I just think that would be appalling, as well as the fact that the Queen hasn't met her great-grandchild.
I do wonder if we, and I could be wrong on this, but whether if we apply our sort of family values and family structure to the royals, and it is very different.
Which Prince Harry has said himself. He's talked about it being like living in the Truman Show, that everyone is trapped in the prison that is the royal family and feels like they can't escape. But, you mentioned the balcony moment. First of all, I doubt either of them are going to turn up to the Platinum Jubilee unless this security issue is solved, because they've said unless they are able to pay for British intelligence and security access, then they won't be returning to this country in any sort of professional duties. But even if they did come back, I'd feel uncomfortable about having them on that balcony next to the Queen. After all the disrespect they've shown, I think they have to give something as well.
Yes.
And I don't think at this stage they've illustrated that.
Well, maybe they need a refreshing moment to clear their heads, like a dip in the sea, Benjamin, this Easter weekend.
But that was very smooth, Stephen.
Oh, I'm a semi-professional.
Was it?
Was, Anne.
Sorry.
The Daily Star's front page. So it's going to be about 22 degrees over this weekend, which is the hottest we've had it. Hotter than the Costa del Sol, even. So your guest earlier in Malaga, I'm afraid, has gone in the wrong place. But the RNLI has warned that it is freezing cold in the water. It's about 8 degrees, and they've warned people about cold shock from dipping in the water and how cold it's going to be at British beaches.
Ease your way in. That's the key with cold water.
Is that what you do?
Yeah, you have to tiptoe in. I mean, do that very British thing about sort of stand there for a minute and let yourself get used to it. But what I find is quite funny is they're telling the great British public, who have lived through all manner of temperatures, to take a sweater with them to the beach. Now, I've grown up in a family...
I know. Do we really need to be told?
Absolutely. We used to take practically every set of clothing that you could imagine to the beach when I was a kid. The car was full of jumpers, coats, umbrellas, wellies, sunscreen...
Everything.
You name it. So I don't think we need to be told that, and I think you do. You just creep in. I don't think you need to keep out of the water. It's nice and refreshing, but, I tend to go up to my knees and decide that's enough.
Me too.
That's very sensible.
Absolutely. Why push yourself?
Mind you, all respect to the RNLI, they do an amazing job, and they will be concerned, won't they, about deaths in the water this weekend.
And there will always be people who won't be told, and there will always be people who will run in, perhaps after having too many drinks at a lunchtime, and get into trouble. And 400 people a year drown in the waters around the country. So they do a very, very valuable job.
Yeah, so just be sensible if you're going in the water. Respect the water, as they say. Knees, that's far enough in.
And take a beach bag full of things, stuff. Everything from blankets to sunscreen.
To the Express, Claire, looking at the boost to our economy, because we're sort of staying at home a bit more.
Yeah, no, I don't know if this is an enforced stay at home because of problems with passports and travel abroad, but also the weather is stunning, the British scenery is stunning, and you were mentioning Barrow-in-Furness.
Oh, yes.
I spent a lot of my holidays, my summer holidays, my grandparents lived in that direction, just outside of Penrith.
Oh, right.
So I've been around there, and it's absolutely beautiful. So why don't we spend more time in this country? I know people are desperate to go off overseas, but we have some absolutely brilliant beaches and great towns and cities, and I think people are rediscovering the country that they live in. So the 2 million boost is much needed.
Yeah, mean, a lot of that happened in the lockdown, didn't it? That we all explored our locales a bit more.
Yeah, but do you know, I've never been to Cornwall, and because I grew up north, so it wasn't an obvious holiday.
No, it's a long way to go.
To stay at home. And I really want to go, and I considered it sort of during the various stages of the pandemic when that stuff was possible. But it's really, really expensive. It's more expensive than going overseas. And for me, that's what puts me off.
Actually, that's true,
I'm
yes.
not sure I could afford a week in Cornwall in the summer.
Yeah.
It is quite an exclusive Cornwall, actually, isn't it? It's beautiful when you get there, but yes, a lot of the hotels and places are expensive.
I think I'll have to become a world leader and go to G8 if I'm to get a nice...
Yeah, that's right.
No, I've never been for a holiday down that part of the world, to be honest.
Absolutely beautiful place. Gorgeous
But
Cornwall.
there are other places. I mean, there are
Yes, there
beaches
are.
in Wales and in other places in the southwest. You don't have to go down to Cornwall. It's very fashionable. It's very beautiful, but it's also full. Along the south coast, you know, across the Hampshire coast, Bournemouth, places like that, and into Kent, you know, my own county, we have some stunning places to visit. So I would recommend that everybody does that.
Yes.
Or Scotland, because
I love Scotland.
I've been right up to the Highlands, and actually, it's absolutely
Brilliant.
gorgeous there. You know, especially as someone that lives, you know, in a big city, to get away to places like the Highlands, I think is just good for the soul.
Or the Cotswolds. Yeah, actually, get your ideas coming in. Love some ideas from you on that. Where are the most beautiful places? Probably you're very proud of where you are at the moment. Can you recommend any great beauty spots that we should all be visiting and maybe doing our bit for the economy?
Fancy a bit of Scotland. I fancy a trip to Wales. Actually, I've got relatives in Wales. I'd love to do a bit of that, actually.
There's this fantastic hotel in Wales that's in the dark area. You know what they call dark skies.
The
area.
dark skies zone. Oh, lovely.
And because I was researching it for an article I was writing, and this hotel and it's got like pods in the countryside. And if the sky is clear, and it usually is, and the stars are absolutely incredible because it's a deliberately dark sky area, you press a button and the roof just opens up, so you can sleep you can literally sleep under the stars. And apparently it is brilliant. I'd love to go there.
Yeah, well, I think we should
Ever been there? I want to find out more,
Yeah,
please.
that sounds absolutely wonderful. I fancy
GBViews at gbnews.uk, please.
Now, are you a Twitter fiend, Benjamin?
Do you know, I've not tweeted in about 2 days because...
Was that good?
Is that big for you? That's a big deal for you, is it?
Exactly. You know, my bank holiday weekend treat is to not be looking at Twitter. It drives me mad. But someone who is looking at Twitter is Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, likely to be the world's first trillionaire. And he wants to buy Twitter because he says it's no longer a bastion of freedom of speech. So he thinks that there's too many rules, there's too many people being kicked off, and he's put in $43 billion to buy it. That would give him a lot of sway over their policies and who can say what on the platform. Now the shareholders of Twitter are doing a thing which is a poison pill, I think it's called, which is where if you try to buy more than 15% of it, then existing shareholders get it cheaper to try and stop him buying it, or at least make him pay a lot more to get control of it.
So they basically don't want him to buy it?
They don't want him.
No, and I think it's an established thing that they don't want, you know, businesses don't like people sort of raiding their company with malintent. But a lot of people would question whether his freedom of speech argument is malintent.
It depends, Claire. What is freedom of speech?
Well, that was the point I was going to make. So what is freedom of speech to you and to me and to Elon Musk and to Twitter are going to be very, very separate things. And I think we all have to understand that there is responsibility for what we put out there. I use Twitter quite a lot of the time. I get abuse from, you know, one section of society or another. And, you know, you just have to kind of put up with that. So I'm not sure I buy the free speech argument. I just think that he is an incredibly rich man who is looking to break into that kind of tech platform because he doesn't have a foothold in it at the moment. I don't know what he would do with it that was any different. You know, it kind of is what it is, and there are other things out there. So why doesn't
You'd think he'd be busy enough sending men to the International Space Station and sending Teslas into space. It's him that sent the Tesla.
And he's got two kids. One of them's only about 6 months old. You'd think that would keep him pretty busy.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, there
He
you
wants
go.
to get his hands on Twitter as well. Strange.
It's been very good to see you both this morning. Claire, Benjamin, thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah. More royal news now. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex are going to speak on stage at the Invictus Games at the opening ceremony, which is later today.
Now, their arrival marks their first public appearance together in Europe since quitting as senior working royals in 2020.
We know now, don't we, that they visited the Queen on their way to the Games earlier this week.
Let's talk to royal commentator Ingrid Stewart. Really good to see you this morning, Ingrid. How important is it, do you think, for the brand of the Sussexes to be seen on stage, both speaking, both taking part at this opening ceremony?
Well, I think it's very important. I mean, they've got to produce something really good for their Netflix documentary, which is built all around the games. So they needed. My feeling is they needed the stardust of their visit to the Queen to really promote this whole thing. And of course, it's attracted huge publicity, which is exactly what they wanted. I'm not cynical enough to say it was purposely done that way, but they seriously needed this.
We're all feeling a bit cynical about it, though, aren't we? Because we rather hope that the reason they went to see the Queen is because they want to mend any broken fences and build bridges. But they apparently did have a crew with them. Probably didn't get into any area where the Queen was, but there was a crew following them, so it's clearly part of the narrative, which does sort of suggest that they're just using that royal visit to promote themselves.
It does look like that, unfortunately, but I don't really think that even Harry and Meghan would have the nerve to do that. Certainly the Netflix crew would not have been near the inside of the Queen's private apartments in the castle. I think they genuinely wanted to make amends. And I think Harry wanted to see his grandmother. She wanted to see him. I don't think it was quite as complicated as we all make out. But of course, it's a really good story. But I would go with the olive branch and say, but of course, there were a lot of other advantages as well.
This could be the start of something. This could actually be the start of Harry getting a little bit more involved. But I mean, not in public duties, but getting more just back involved with the family again.
I think we all hope, I mean, whatever you might think of Harry and Meghan, we all rather hope so that the family will embrace them again. But I'm not sure about Prince William. I think that probably goes a bit deeper. And I know that Prince Charles is very hurt, but it's his son, and he doesn't want to fall out any more with his son. So he was obviously very pleased with their meeting. And the Queen's 96 years old. She doesn't want to have a fight with her grandson, but she can convey her displeasure in a look. It doesn't have to be words. So I'm absolutely certain that it wasn't like we imagine a sort of long meeting. I would think it was an exchange of pleasantries, because that's the royal way, but with the undertone of mending bridges.
Yeah, and of course we've got all the celebrations coming up in June, and the Queen will want the family to look as united as possible to her public. She knows it's what we want.
She does know it's what we want, and she's all about unity. She's head of the Church of England. She's defender of the faith. It's all about forgiveness. She has always been about forgiveness. Look at Fergie, look at Andrew, look at other members of her family that have got themselves into trouble. I mean, she's not the sort of woman that's going to just say, well, there's nothing, there's nothing more I can do. The only time that happened to her was with Diana, and it took several years for her to actually come round to that way of thinking.
Rumoured, it is said that it's Princess Eugenie, I think it's certainly one of Andrew's daughters, who was instrumental in sort of making sure that Harry could come over, making sure that that's what everybody wanted. I gather she's a bit of a peacemaker.
She's a lovely girl, and whether or not she was instrumental in this, I don't know. I mean, you can put two and two together because, of course, Eugenie and Jack went out to Los Angeles, where they probably stayed with Prince Harry. She's living in his house here, so they are close. And, she might well have been a peacemaker, but I don't think we can know that unless she actually tells us herself.
Oh, well.
The gossip goes on.
We'll see. Ingrid, really good to see you this morning.
The gossip goes on, yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much indeed. Good to see you this morning. Now, it's time for all the latest sports news this morning. And there's been some cricket controversy, Aidan McGee.
There has, yeah. There's been, it's a big weekend of sport anyway, but it kicked off yesterday with the unexpected stepping down of Joe Root, the England captain in cricket. A torrid time he's endured over the last year or so, despite his decent batting. But he stepped down, as we say, as England's Test cricket captain. Monty Panesar, the former England bowler, joins us now for more analysis. Monty, this was probably not before time. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me on the show. I think it was probably expected that Joe Root will step down after the third Test match. He did look quite tired and exhausted from the whole process, and I think the longevity of his captaincy. Over 60 Test matches, scoring over 5,000 Test runs. I think being the fifth, captain with the most Test runs as captaining his country, it's been quite remarkable. But also, people are kind of like thinking, how do you define Joe Root's captaincy? Being the Test captain is quite a distinct and a complex thing, and it's trying to get the best out of your players. So I wouldn't say he's quite up there with the likes of Nasser Hussain or Michael Vaughan. But in terms of his batting, he'll end up probably being the greatest batsman we've had, as an English Test cricketer. And hopefully he'll continue to now, play his cricket and see probably the best of him in a much more relaxed environment.
Feel that it's a sign that the ECB is in slight disarray, isn't it? The fact that we're not going to see an appointment now for a little while because they haven't made their own appointments at a high level.
Yeah, obviously, there's a chairman to be decided, a coach, managing director, and a new captain. So there's some big decisions to be made in the next sort of few weeks. And it seems likely that Rob Key will probably take that position. And then he'll have some, few decisions to make about the future of James Anderson and Stuart Broad. And the likelihood of who will become the Test coach as well. And I think some people are tipping that Andy Flower is a good option, possibly Tom Moody or Ricky Ponting for test roles. Test coach, and then split that with the white ball, which I think Paul Collingwood seems to be the firm favourite to take that.
Monty, just explain the nuances between sports, because the captaincy in England cricket, particularly in the Test game, is a lot different from, say, in football or rugby. There's a lot more responsibility and a lot more is incumbent in that role, isn't it?
Yeah, I think when you're the captain of the Test team, it's all about the energy, the vibes, the plans that you put in place. And I think Joe Root probably ran out of some fresh ideas. And, his replacement most likely to be, Ben Stokes if he wants to take that job. And I think, the first thing I would do is go and see Ben Stokes and ask him, how does he feel mentally and physically? Is he ready to take up that role? And if he is, and I think that'll probably be, the most likely person. But if that's not the case, then James Anderson could be a possible option on a short-term basis. The likes of New Zealand, South Africa, he's probably the bowler that they fear the most, and Stuart Broad. So both of them could be a short-term, answer until they look for someone slightly longer term.
Just quickly then, Monty, that was my final question, really. Who do you think is most likely to take over from Joe Root? We know that Ben Stokes took some time out last summer for the sake of his own mental well-being. Do you believe that he has it in him to take the team forward from here, if he was selected?
I think it's entirely up to him. He's just coming. He's got an injury as well at the moment, and can he take on that responsibility? This decision will probably be slightly easier for him because he's such a loyal person to Joe Root that now I think that decision probably be, he can discuss with Joe Root. He'll need some, support, senior support around him, the likes of Johnny Bairstow and some of the other sort of players in there to help him and support him through this role. But I think if he does want to take up that Test captaincy, the decision will probably be a lot easier for him to do so now, since we know that Joe Root has stepped down.
Great. Listen, thanks very much indeed for joining us, Monty, this morning. We'll see how that one plays out, but a big move, obviously, with Joe Root stepping down as the England cricket captain. But more sport as the morning goes on as well.
Aidan, thanks very much for being here, because I don't know much about cricket, but I do know that Monty Panesar is a huge name.
Oh, he is. He's great. He's a great friend of GBNews as well.
Oh, fantastic to have him on the programme. You're going to be coming back a bit later?
I hope so, if you'll have me.
Yes,
well, always.
Of course we'll have you. Yeah.
Oh, so you're part of the family, Aidan.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have a lovely little breakfast family, don't we?
We do. It's coming along nicely, isn't it?
Very nicely.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, do stay with us, because we've got another hour to give you on this Easter Saturday morning.
Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking cloudy, misty and murky at first in the west, dry and bright elsewhere. Let's take a look at the details. Southwest England will start the day with low cloud, mist, fog and possibly some drizzle at times, although this will tend to turn back to the coasts through the morning. In contrast, the southeast of England will start the day dry and bright with plenty of sunshine on offer for all. Wales will also have a rather cloudy start, particularly near the coast where patchy mist, fog or drizzle is possible, drier and brighter inland. In the Midlands, cloud will also bring hill fog and the odd spot of rain over the higher ground to the north of the central belt, but there will also be some sunny spells. It'll be rather cloudy in the northwest and northeast of England too. It'll also brighten up though through the morning. Scotland will see similar conditions to the rest of the country, with temperatures reaching 16 degrees by midday. Northern Ireland will also have a cloudy, misty and rather murky start to the day, especially near eastern coasts. However, it will steadily brighten up here through the morning. And that's your forecast for your Easter Saturday.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
The Home Secretary believes other countries will follow the UK's Rwanda asylum proposals amid reports of a civil service backlash.
Morning to you. It is 9 o'clock on Saturday, April the 16th. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Anne.
And we're live across the whole of the UK on both your TV and your radio and online. And let's hope we're on the beach with you today.
Oh, that would be nice if we can be there partly, even if we're not there in person. That would be lovely. Coming up for you today, the Home Secretary says the government's plan to send illegal immigrants to Rwanda will serve as a blueprint to others, despite reports of a row in the Home Office and warnings from the UN that it breaches international law.
The Duke and Duchess of Sussex will both speak on stage at the Invictus Games opening ceremony later today, just one day after the couple's first public appearance in Europe since quitting as senior working royals.
If you're looking to move home this summer and fancy living by the beautiful British coast, maybe you could be priced out of a move. The prices are going up. We'll tell you more.
Easter sizzler. The UK is set for warm weather ahead of Easter Sunday after experiencing the hottest day of the year so far yesterday. We are live in Skegness all morning long.
If you're in Skegness, get in touch. If you're anywhere that's lovely, get in touch. We'd love to know where you are this morning, what you're doing, whether you're staying at home or planning a day out travelling. GBViews at gbnews.uk or tweet us at GBNews.
Now, the Home Secretary, Priti Patel, believes other countries will emulate the UK Rwanda asylum scheme. Apparently, Denmark could be amongst those to reproduce what she calls a blueprint.
Now, this despite the UN's refugee agency saying the plans are, in fact, a breach of international law.
Yeah, the UNHCR is accusing the government of shifting responsibility and evading international obligations.
Well, Downing Street says migrants who arrive in Britain unlawfully could be sent to the East African country within just 6 weeks.
It's a pilot scheme. It costs £120 million and is apparently going to target single men because they make up the majority of the 28,300 people who crossed the Channel last year.
Well, Priti Patel reportedly took a rare step of issuing a ministerial direction to overrule concerns of civil servants about whether the concept will actually deliver value for money. Earlier, we spoke to Dr. Greg Mills, the former strategic advisor to the president of Rwanda, about the resistance to the plan.
Well, I think it's a highly transactional response to the refugee crisis in the UK, and essentially you're putting the responsibility on another country. Now, the problem here is that Rwanda, while it has a very good record at development and a very good record at relative economic prosperity, and it's an accessible place, at least for foreign visitors, and something of a favorite among certain sort of rock stars in the aid and development industry, it has an appalling human rights record. It ranks with 22 points out of 100, for instance, on Freedom House's index on political freedoms, which puts it in about the same space as Russia, for instance. Now, you wouldn't be sending your refugees to Russia to see them catered for and cared for. So why, you would ask, are you sending them to Rwanda? And I think the answer is simply that the Rwandese are willing to have them, they're willing to process them, and they're willing to do so because they're getting £120 million in return. And it seems, I think, frankly, a way of shifting the blame to another place, to another country, or shifting the problem, should I say, rather, and rather than having to deal with it at source. And you really, to deal with the refugee crisis, and particularly the refugee crisis from sub-Saharan Africa, which is responsible for most refugees in the world today, not most of those coming to the UK, by the way, but you have to really deal with it at source. And dealing with it at source means essentially improving the political conditions in the countries that are supplying these refugees to enable the economies, in turn, to ensure conditions of prosperity. I think people are probably, the push factors on refugees are probably great enough that they will regardless take a chance. I mean, these are people fleeing terrible conditions, whether they be terrible economic conditions or political repression. They probably suffice to push them to the UK or to somewhere better in Europe. And I think the hazardous nature of the journeys that they're willing to undertake is an illustration of that desperation. So I'm not sure if the possibility of them ending up in Rwanda will be a deterrent. I think it's just simply shifting the problem elsewhere on the part of the UK. And I do think there is a moral question here, which is these are people who have obviously fleeing conditions, and they may just be in search of a better life, but certainly a safer life. And then essentially you're putting them into a place whereby they may not, in fact, be experiencing the conditions for a better life or a safer life at all. And I really don't believe it has a deterrent value among people who are this desperate.
Well, keep your views coming in on that one as well. I think it's incredible how polarised people are about the Rwanda thing. I think probably most people watching at the moment think it's a good idea and to give it a go.
It's the sort of idea where you think and it does on the surface. You think, ooh, it doesn't sound quite right in a way, but it's like we've got a problem. How do we? Everyone's been saying for years we need to tackle this issue.
Yes.
We've tried lots of things. We've given France millions and millions of pounds to try and sort things out on their side of the channel, and nothing seems to work.
Achieved.
So, try it seems to be a lot of what you're saying this morning.
But there are a lot of concerns because you end up, and you can't help it, you end up talking about human beings as though they're just numbers and as though they're a problem. And I think when we just said, do you remember when David Cameron was so criticised for talking about swathes,
swarms
of people coming, and had to be reminded that they're not insects, they're people, and there may be awfully good reasons why they would rather come to Britain than stay where they are. You have to be very, very wary of not just talking about them as numbers. But if you're Priti Patel, you've got to deal with what is a problem because people are dying trying to get here. And I suppose there's an interview with her in one of the papers saying she has heartached about it for quite a few years, trying to find a solution.
Well, I can understand it. I mean, because it does sound not overly pleasant for those people that it will happen to, and yet the key point is it is meant to be a deterrent. As someone actually messaged in earlier on, making that very point, that it's it has to be implemented for a period of time, but then hopefully it just stops people doing it. And therefore, we won't be sending anyone to Rwanda. It's just a sort of threat, if you like. We've got lots. Should we do these views after the? Should we do the headlines first?
Yes, why not?
And
That's our job.
And then we'll because we've got some nice views to talk
Yes, we
about,
have some lovely ones.
Cheer us up a little bit. The shadow prisons minister is calling for judges to be given more powers to force criminals to attend sentencing hearings. Ellie Reeves says people want to see those who've committed horrendous crimes held to account for what they've done.
There were Russian casualties in the sinking of the warship Moskva in the Black Sea. That's according to a senior US government source. The USA says it happened after the Ukraine hit the vessel with 2 Neptune anti-ship missiles. But the Kremlin says no, it wasn't anything to do with that. It was stormy seas and an explosion of ammunition on board.
The Duke and Duchess of Sussex will speak at the Invictus Games opening ceremony in the Netherlands later. It follows the visit on Thursday to Windsor to see the Queen and the Prince of Wales.
And would you believe it, on Easter Saturday, health officials are warning certain Kinder chocolate products linked to the salmonella outbreak should not be eaten this Easter weekend. The UK Health Security Agency has issued the alert for Kinder Surprise, Kinder Mini Eggs and Kinder Chocobons.
The thing is, the Kinder issue was at one production unit.
Yes.
But how do you know where your stuff's been made?
You can't be sure is the answer.
So you've just got to chuck it.
I'm afraid so. And you think how many... it's terrible for Kinder, isn't it? It was one of their big weekends, surely, Easter eggs. But, check if you've got Kinder products. And if there are any of those that we read out there, don't take the risk, I think.
Don't take the risk. I should
Absolutely
imagine that there's a way of getting in touch with Kinder and maybe getting some vouchers for some new ones or something.
There usually is things like product recalls. Sarah says, I want to be able to get away, but the cost of living spike means I don't think I'll get a holiday for a while. It's fun to talk about travelling, but loads of people can't even afford to heat their homes at the moment.
It's a really valid point. Someone tweeted me something similar yesterday, saying, 1 minute you're talking about holidays, then you're talking about the cost of living crisis. I think it's true.
Everything is all happening at once.
But, for those people who can afford to get away, whether it is abroad or whether it is just, a trip to the beach for the day, but some people can't even afford that.
Toby says, I love getting away. I have a trip booked for May to Budapest. I'm going with my boyfriend, and it's nice we can travel outside of the dreaded school holidays. Choose your moment, isn't it?
Yes, the only problem with Budapest, I hate to say it, Toby, is it's quite near the whole Ukrainian issue, isn't it?
Well, Greg's got a trip booked for the summer with his family to Greece. Hopefully this COVID staff shortage is all nonsense by then. I can't believe COVID is still destroying our nice times. It's getting better, though, isn't it, generally?
It is getting better. You've just got to... Well, I'm going to Italy 5 weeks today.
Yes, you are, and very special.
Very special, yes. Very special week away. But even then, we've got to take sort of, at the minute, you see, you've got to still take face masks for some places.
Some things, yeah.
But hopefully, I'm hoping that's gone. But I had to order special ones. You know, they have to be a special.
Oh, those N95 B23
ones that make you
something.
look like a duck.
Yes, that's right. And they're really uncomfortable to wear. I hate them.
But anyway, so I've ordered some of those, but hopefully I won't need it. Joey says, I loved hearing about Anne's adventures around the country and abroad. I was wondering what the best place either of you has gone, both professionally or personally. Ooh, so different. I would say I went China.
Never been to China, would love to go.
You see, I didn't want to go, but it was a company took me out for the Olympics in 2008 to Beijing, and I'm not a huge traveller in a way. And it was my mother who said, go, you've got to go.
Yeah, you can't turn down an adventure.
Can't turn it down.
Yeah.
So I went, and actually, I mean, it was a remarkable place, and the atmosphere with the Olympics was incredible.
Yes.
And to go to...
Were you there for the opening ceremony?
No, closing ceremony.
Closing ceremony, wow.
And the Great Wall and all that sort of thing that we did was amazing. And I know this sounds really soppy, but it was so emotional, the closing ceremony, with all the fireworks going off all around the bird's nest thing was unbelievable. That when I watch it now, and I watch that on video...
You still get upset?
I get really emotional. Just because it was such a powerful... I remember there was a little Chinese family that were there, sat next to me, and they were all smiley and happy, and to see them sort of in their city doing it was not just all foreign bods like me who'd been flown in to do it. It was really nice. It was phenomenal.
It's so huge, though, isn't it? I mean, I've looked into... Because I'd love to go and see the terracotta soldiers.
Oh, yes.
But that is miles away from Beijing, isn't it? It's another plane journey, a long plane journey. China is an enormous country, but it would be lovely to see. I'd love to see Beijing.
And the Forbidden City.
Yes.
Did all of that. I mean, again, it's just incredible.
And I have to say, Sydney, Australia.
Oh, I'd love
One
to
of the
go
most
to Australia.
beautiful places on the planet. Absolutely fab. Wonderful place.
I'd love to do that. But ordinarily, little trips, I go to the Costa Blanca.
Yes, it's a short hop.
It's a short hop, nice little flight to Alicante, and it's beautiful and lovely and relaxing. So there you go.
How about Skegness?
I'd love to go to Skegness.
Skegness is lovely.
Lovely. I love a British beach. Can't beat that.
No, not if the weekend is right and the weather is right. And this bank holiday weekend, it looks as though it's going to be right. Except we're expecting 22 million car journeys this weekend. So if you're setting off, get a move on.
Get a move on.
Yeah.
It could take a little while. Hopefully it's not too bad. Thankfully, Will Hollis was up and about nice and early this morning and made his way from Nottingham to Skegness. Morning, Will. I mean, I have to say the weather looks beautiful for it.
Good morning. Yes, it's absolutely gorgeous here. It's clear skies and sunshine in Skegness, and I know it is in large parts of the UK as well. I think we're expecting temperatures around 14, 15, 16, 17 degrees here. Low 20s for lots of places across the country as well. We saw yesterday, Good Friday, the highest temperature that's been recorded for the country so far this year. So it is boding well for this bank holiday weekend. There is a little bit of worry, as there is every single year, about the amount of traffic that we might expect to see on the roads. RAC estimating that 22 million leisure journeys, so people specifically going for holidays in coastal destinations just like Skegness, they're going to be on the roads over the bank holiday weekend. Today specifically, it's a little bit less than yesterday if you were travelling, about 3.6 million car journeys. People going to be on the road. There's also, of course, everything to do with the FA Cup final, the semi-final that's happening down at Wembley. Liverpool and Manchester City heading down there, so you might see some problems around the M25 as well as the M6 in the north. Well, Skegness is really starting to heat up, and a lot more people. As you were here about an hour ago, it was pretty empty. People were still having their lines, having in their breakfast, but you can see lots of families down here, and I'm being told that it is going to be rammed. It is going to be packed. The dog walkers that I've spoken to, they said, we live in Skegness and we are going to get out and stay in our homes and stay in our gardens because it's going to be so busy with tourists. So here to tell us a little bit more is Councillor Colin Davey from Lincolnshire County Council. Obviously, we are on the Lincolnshire coastline here at Skegness. What can we expect from this tourist destination today?
Well, it's going to be absolutely full. We're expecting tens of thousands of visitors every day this weekend, and we're expecting the economy to really take off, and it's needed after a dark, long winter.
And that period of a bounce back that we're hoping for after the 2 years of the pandemic, that's coupled, unfortunately, with the cost of living crisis. Do you expect lots of people to still make the choice to visit Skegness this year?
I think Skegness offers a really, really good holiday destination for people. It's value for money. And what we want to ensure, of course, with the cost of living crisis is that people want to come back year on year and make sure that the UK is a destination of choice rather than going to Spain or elsewhere.
We have seen the stories from this week and last about Manchester Airport, Birmingham Airport, lots of people waiting in queues. Sure, we might have a few problems on the roads coming in and out of Skegness at some of those busier times, but do you think people will be making the choice to come to holiday destinations that they've chose to avoid for the last 20, 30 years?
I think they're going to want to check out the UK market again. I think they're going to want to come to Skegness and Mablethorpe and Cleethorpes and the whole coastline here. And this is an area that's worth, $2.4 billion a year in terms of revenue from tourism, and it supports 30,000 jobs. So of course we want it to be strong, and we want it to really bounce back and remain that way.
And we're talking about, of course, cost of living crisis. Just very quickly, what's it like for the people that call this place home?
I think it's difficult. I mean, cost of living is a real issue for everybody in this country. And quite clearly, even if you're buying your fish and chips here, the cost of cooking oil has doubled in price. So these things are going to be passed on to consumers quite clearly. So it's going to be a challenge. And this is not an area of high wages. It is a low wage area. So we have to remember that we have to look after the interests of residents and of visitors.
Colin, thank you so much for talking to us today on Breakfast on GB News. It is going to get a lot busier here. The sun is out, and we'll be here all day to bring you up-to-date travel advice, travel news, as well as all of the different tourism notifications that you might expect to see.
Lovely stuff, Will. Thank you.
Nice to see lots of people there waving at us. They can't see us waving back at the moment. It's interesting, we were hearing the councillor there talk about Mablethorpe, Cleethorpe, and we were wondering, what does Thorpe mean?
It means a village or hamlet. It's in Old English.
Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it? Do stay with us. We've got plenty more to come, and hopefully some more sunshine for you as well.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you, or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
9:20. Morning to you. This is Breakfast with Stephen and Anne, live across the UK on your TV and on your radio.
Now, teachers will debate how to tackle the growing problem of incel culture in schools, as 7 in 10 teachers apparently saying they have experienced real misogyny at work.
Yeah, now, incel, it's involuntary celibacy, is used for men who define themselves as unable to get a romantic partner and express hostility towards those who are sexually active, particularly women.
Yeah, it's a word that is entirely new to me, but it shows that there's a growing problem, because a poll by a large teachers' union showed almost 60% of those who participated saying they faced sexism from pupils.
Well, let's talk to Chris McGovern, who's chairman of the Campaign for Real Education. Good to see you this morning, Chris. How do you begin to tackle incel as a problem within schools without encouraging people to be sexually active?
Yeah, it seems to be a growing problem, but there is a way forward. And it's that in any school, someone's going to be in charge. And I was a head teacher. I think I was in charge of my school. Head teachers need to be firm on this. They need to draw a red line. And when children treat other children badly, whether it's to do with misogyny, homophobia, transphobia, or whatever it is, if children cross a line, they know there has to be some sort of punishment. And if necessary, that should be exclusion. No, we can't throw boys onto the scrap heap because they're being misogynist. They've got to be looked after as well. But we do have to protect girls. We have to protect other groups in the school. So really, this is about leadership, and we should throw away some of these liberal ideas about, oh, we're always going to put the child first, the offender first. No, if children are being threatened or teachers are being threatened by these misogynist remarks, then the children or the boys, they have to be made accountable. Sometimes it works the other way, by the way. Sometimes male staff are also subjected to sexist comments. And don't forget, by the way, that 75% of our teachers or slightly more are actually female. And so, and schools are a heavily feminized environment. And in fact, the majority of staff in schools are not teachers. They're classroom assistants and support staff. It's a very feminine environment. I have a lot of sympathy for the boys, because it's the boys who in many ways are failing in our education system. But as a head teacher, I always drew a red line. If you cross that red line, the children knew that, they would be in trouble. And if that includes exclusion, we have to support those children who are excluded. Of course we do. But if you have to exclude pupils, the message will get through. If you are going to be misogynistic or whatever in that line of your views, then you're going to be punished. And boys will understand that, girls will understand that, and staff will understand that. So what do we need? We need some leadership and some firm head teachers.
I know I can't be the only person who's never actually heard the term before. There are probably lots of people watching now who are saying, hang on, what is this? Is there any way you can explain to us what incel is and how it happens in schools, how it demonstrates itself in schools?
Well, it's a term now which has been being used for boys who are, generally speaking, not actually being particularly successful in their relationships with females, and they're supporting each other on social media, and they're perhaps quite sad people. Look, we had a case only in the last year where we had this lad in Plymouth who actually shot people. It can be quite serious. Some of these boys have serious issues. Look, we all have serious issues in some respect, and girls do too. But there are certainly within the school environment some boys who do have issues. I think partly it's because they don't have enough male role models. In primary schools, you're as likely to see a polar bear in the classroom as you are a male teacher, in many of them. 90% of the teachers in primary school, very formative years, are female. We've got to do something to help the boys. They are failing, but it's no excuse, of course, for the boys when they are misogynistic. So incel, yes, it's boys who aren't really capable of having a relationship with girls. They're working together, they're supporting each other, they become misogynistic. And it's a grey area, so I'm not surprised at all that it's not familiar to a lot of listeners. It's a growing problem. But, in a sense, our schools reflect our society. We've had some horrendous situations in our society, misogynistic situations. And we've had homophobic situations, transphobic and so forth. There are problems out there. But ultimately, the people who perpetrate the problem, the people who are causing the problem, do have to know that there is a punishment for that. And in schools, it has to be pretty hard. And I think most pupils would support that. But we mustn't forget, those boys themselves, many are failing. White working class boys in particular, of whom I was one, white working class boys are at the bottom of the pile in terms of attainment. I work with families, many boys who are in very poor circumstances. They suffer a lot, not least because their parents can't read and write. They're not going to come on GBNews, these parents, and say, I can't read and write, because they're ashamed of it. But they're coming from family backgrounds where they're not, the families aren't succeeding, the parents aren't succeeding. They can't help the child. The child lashes out, the boy lashes out. So we mustn't forget that these boys need help as well. But as far as the school goes, the way to solve the problem is firm leadership. If a boy or a girl can't behave properly, there has to be a line. And if they cross it, they have to be excluded and sent to somewhere where they can succeed.
It is a bigger societal problem, though. You're quite right in all of that. And it's part of it. I mean, obviously, not all misogyny that is coming from boys is caused by the incel culture, though some of it may well be. Some of it is going to be what they're bringing back from home. Now, does exclusion in that sense, actually, is that going to make any difference if there's actually an issue back at home when they get back to the house?
You're absolutely right. Does it help? It helps because it might protect the girls if it's a misogynistic assault. We have to remember the majority have to be looked after. It's the last resort. But if boys understand, any child understands that in a school there are rules, and I was head of a very liberal school, one of the most liberal schools in England, and yet they knew there was a line. On one occasion, I had to ask a member of staff, actually, fairly new member of staff, to leave because I felt he was harassing a female member of staff, and he left, and I was quite clear, you cross that line, you go. That was a member of staff. But, you know, if children understand rules, they want rules, they crave rules for their own protection. But you're absolutely right, Stephen. The boys who go home and they're coming from a broken home, perhaps they've got problems at home, they can't be neglected. So I hope when the unions, my old union, by the way, I hope when they discuss this today at the conference, they will not forget the boys. The boys, we need to talk about the boys. The girls generally succeed in our schools. The boys are less successful at every level. And so we mustn't forget the boys. We must support them. But we cannot have this misogyny in our schools or in our society. And it starts early. And how much we want to have more male role models in our primary school. I taught in the secondary sector, and I also taught in the primary sector. And in the primary sector, it is much more difficult to recruit males. Why is that? Because too often people think, oh, you're a man working with young children. What's your problem? There's a real issue there about masculinity and how we view males. So big societal problem. But I'm glad the union are discussing it, and I'm glad we're talking about it on GB News, because it's an important issue in our society.
It is. I mean, it's one that in my own family I've come across because I'm a single mum of 5 boys and always tried to seek things for them to do, clubs for them to join, schools for them to go to, where there were male role models. I mean, their dad was still around, but boys need male role models. I mean, you just think of the way you speak about, if they speak about women, the old-fashioned idea of dad would always say to a child, you don't speak to your mother like that. You don't treat a woman like that. You took that lead from your dad, didn't you, if he was around? And there is a lack of male role models now, an awful lot of women bringing up children on their own.
Yeah, you know, this is true. It sounds so old-fashioned, you know, and I'm often accused of being pretty old-fashioned in my views. But at the end of the day, I think children crave the sort of schools that we had perhaps in the 50s and the 60s, when there was somebody in charge, when we didn't let it all hang out, and where there were more men in the classroom. Look, women do, I'm not against women at all. Women do fantastic jobs in our education system. It does worry me considerably, though, that too many young people, boys, and also girls, are not actually having the male role models. And don't forget, by the way, and particularly in primary school, there are a lot of Hermione Granger. Remember Hermione Granger from Harry Potter? The precocious, the forward young girl. And often the girls dominate the classroom, particularly at primary school. They succeed. They're better at reading. They're even better at mathematics. They do very well. And too often the boys aren't doing so well. I was actually head of a boys' school, a primary school, in the independent sector when I finished my career. I did also teach in the state sector, but I was head of a boys' school. And in the independent sector, there are more male teachers. And I think in some respect, I used to say to parents, you know, there are advantages in single-sex schools. One way, perhaps, to solve the problem is to give parents the choice of going back to some sort of single-sex education, having a choice of that at least, because I think you'll find there's less misogyny in girls' schools than there is in mixed schools.
Don't they say that, girl pupils do better in a mixed school, boys pupils do better in a single-sex school? Didn't that used to be the rule?
It's very interesting. I used to often get asked for advice from parents about which secondary school should their child go to, and I would say, look, you go along to the parents' evening, the welcome evening, and when you're allowed to ask the head teacher, if you go to a mixed school and ask the head teacher in the mixed school how many girls are doing physics, how many girls are doing mathematics and further maths and chemistry, and ask the same question in a single-sex girls' school, which there are some, particularly in the private sector. And I'll tell you the great secret. The head teachers of the mixed schools don't like to admit it, but if children go to a mixed school, the girls tend to do the girly subjects. They do the English, the foreign languages, the history, and the boys are inclined to do the maths and the physics. And why do they do that? Because if you're a boy and you do foreign languages, you're a girl. They will accuse you of being girly. And if you're a girl and you do physics, they accuse you of being masculine and so forth. So there's a very strong argument for saying at least we should think about having the choice of more single-sex education. And that sounds terribly old-fashioned, but, I think it's worth a try.
Yeah, you could well be right. Chris McGovern, good to talk to you. Thank you. It rings a few bells with me, I have to say.
It really does. Thank you very much. Absolutely fascinating discussion.
And discipline, actually. Yeah. Children need boundaries. They need to know where the boundaries are.
Yes, they do need rules.
I think there's not enough of that about.
Isn't it so fascinating how a school, though, is a sort of microcosm of society? I suppose this is where all societies, good and bad, foibles start in school. We expect everybody to get on. We expect everybody to understand how to interact with each other. But school is where you learn it.
Yeah.
And if there's nobody setting the rules, how do you learn the best way?
My head teacher, Mr. Turner, was very firm. He was a very firm head teacher, but by heck was he respected.
Yeah, mine too.
Really respected. And I've still got a lot of... I spoke to him the other week.
It's funny how you remember them as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
You remember their names.
Yeah. There you go. Look, let us know what you think about all of that. Be fascinated to get your views. Also, tell us about house prices if you live in a coastal area, because apparently they're skyrocketing. Find out why in a minute.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
9:35, very good morning to you. This is Breakfast with Stephen and Anne, live across the UK on your TV and on your radio.
You wouldn't believe what's just happened.
So it was Specsavers just rang me up. My glasses are ready.
His phone went. I thought we're in the middle of a TV programme and you're saying, 3 o'clock, all right? OK. So funny.
It's got to be multitasking, Anne. Multitasking.
Absolutely. And, you know, if you need new specs, you need new specs.
I do.
Absolutely.
Now, we're enjoying some nice weather at the moment, or at least most of us are.
Yes, most of us are, except Barb in Aberdeen.
Barb.
She says it's drich. That's a weather word, isn't it, drich?
Well, it's certainly a Scottish word.
And it's horrible up there. So let's ask why. From John Hammond, weather expert extraordinaire. Let's ask John about the weather for all of us, but particularly in Aberdeen. Why is it so horrible, John, for Barb?
It is dreich in Aberdeen. Actually, it's dreich in a number of places, Anne. This weather, this warmth, this beautiful sunshine, and by the way, Stephen, you'll be needing your shades today rather than your glasses. It is focused across the more southeastern parts of the UK, to the south and east of England, up through the Midlands, parts of northern England, as we saw in Skegness. It's beautiful there. But further north and west, so for parts of Scotland, down the west coast of Wales and into the southwest, there you have it. You can see the imagery there. It's grey, it's damp, it's misty. And I'm afraid for some of you, you are going to be stuck with that all day long. So it's really across the south and the east, which is closest to an area of high pressure, and high pressure prevents clouds from forming. So closest to high pressure, you tend to get the sunshine. Around the edge of that high, you tend to get more cloud. And the reason it's foggy around the coasts at the moment is because the sea is very, very cool. It's had all winter to cool off, so it's a chilly sea. When you get warm, humid air wafting over a chilly sea, the air condenses into fog, which is why in spring, when you go with your bucket and spade to the seaside, sometimes you can be unlucky, and that will be the case. A word of warning, if you are thinking of getting in the car and driving down to the coast of Cornwall, for example, West Devon, it's likely to stay pretty grey and gloomy, and also, as mentioned, up across Aberdeenshire as well, some mist around. But others doing much better. Yesterday, we reached 23.4 in St James's Park in London. We might be a degree or so down on that today, but hey, what's a degree or so? It's going to be lovely and fine and sunny for many people, especially across the southeast. Enjoy it while it lasts, mind you guys, because things are going to change quite abruptly come next week.
Oh, really? No. I was looking forward to Bank Holiday Monday because we're off.
Yeah, it's our first day off for ages.
Monday doesn't look too bad. We're gonna see slow changes over the next 48 hours. So Sunday again, not too bad. The best of the sunshine once more across the southeast. A bit more cloud in the sky though. And through Sunday night and into Monday, we're going to see a weather front move across the country. Don't get too alarmed. It will bring some showery rain, but it won't be a washout on Monday. But cooler temperatures by then. And certainly the charts through next week do not look pretty at all. So if you're one of the parents whose children are off next week for the Easter holidays as opposed to last week, then I'm afraid you're going to have to find some indoor distractions, because that high pressure is going to get replaced by low pressure, and we all know what that means. There's going to be some rain around. I reckon some places are going to be struggling to get much higher than sort of 12 or 13 degrees next week. So we can wave goodbye to the low 20s, I think, after this weekend.
Oh,
joy.
Never mind.
John, thank you very much for that. That picture that we saw earlier had been sent in by Barb, actually. It was I don't know if we can look at it again, but it must have been so frustrating for her, actually, to hear us talking about beautiful beaches and, you know, lovely sunshine everywhere, and that's what it looks out of Barb's window.
Barb says, I must move, but it is the Granite City. It is my brother used to live in Aberdeen, my sister-in-law, and it's a beautiful place. You just need a bit more sunshine.
Yeah. John says the sun is out and the weather is great in Cornwall. Oh. I'm visiting family in Bristol tomorrow, hoping that everyone travels today and the roads are sweet and clear tomorrow.
Sweet and clear. Oh, that would be nice. We shall see. Well, look, coming up at 10 o'clock for you this morning, it's the Saturday selection with Esther McVeigh and Philip Davis. And Esther, our very own little ray of sunshine is here. Good morning, good morning. What have you got going on today?
Well, do you remember St Elmo's Fire? John Parr, the writer, the singer, absolutely fantastic, sensational hit. He writes for movies and scores.
Well, there was the movie.
He's on. Is
he?
Yes, he's on, and he's going to say, the slot we do, If I Rule the World, what would I do? We're asking him John Parr, if he ruled the world, what would he do?
St Elmo's Fire, because there was a film of the same name, wasn't
exactly
there?
right.
With Emilio Estevez in it, I think it was.
Very good.
Oh, it was a great classic sort of 80s movie. That and The Breakfast Club and all those sort of movies all went together.
Yes. So, so he's on saying what he'd do if he ruled the world. We've also got Toby Young coming on, and we're talking, yes, about free speech, because the online safety bill comes into Parliament next week, and people are saying, what will it do? How will it protect people? And what does this harmful, legal but harmful, what does that mean? And we've got the fabulous Simon Fanshawe doing the papers with us, giving his view on the papers, what's going on and what his selection of the news is. So we've got lots going on, and of course with Partygate, we've got Peter Bone MP on and Dan Hodges saying what they think should happen to Boris Johnson. Should he stay? Should he go? It's a matter of time.
Wow. And are you getting away at all for Easter?
No, I'll be in sunny Cheshire a little bit later on today. I'm hoping.
That's nice.
Well, that's home. But yes, it is.
Yeah, but that's a long drive, isn't it, today? Are you driving?
Well, you see, thank you for picking that point up. There isn't any trains going to the Northwest Day. One of the huge complaints that the semi-final is at Wembley, when really two northern clubs, two clubs from the Northwest, it should have been up north because there aren't trains going back and forth. So, no, I'm going via a rather convoluted route up to Yorkshire.
You're going to Manchester via Yorkshire?
I'm going to Yorkshire. I will see some friends in Yorkshire, then drive back from Yorkshire to Cheshire.
Have you checked the roads? They're all right.
Oh, good luck with that.
Thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah.
I was trying to forget the misery of the trains and the roads.
Well, you know what channel you can listen to while you're in the car,
Oh,
don't
I
you?
will. I'll be tuned in.
Yeah.
Better have be. Esther, thank you. We'll see you at 10.
Actually, Joe says, I'm on my way down to London for the FA Cup game, and the roads aren't too bad at the moment, but I'm worried when we get past Birmingham, it might all start to get a bit congested. But regardless, come on, City!
Yeah, fair enough. Look, St Elmo's Fire, it was like the 80s Rat Pack. And most of them were in that Rob Lowe, Emilio Estevez, Ali Sheedy, Demi Moore, Judd Nelson, Andrew McCarthy.
St Elmo's Fire? I've never seen it.
Oh, it's a classic. And of course, with the soundtrack, with the song.
Would I like it? Is
What,
it
the film?
Is it a boys' movie?
No, it's more those sort of things are more like sort of late 20s, early teens flicks. Sort of angst.
Yes, teenage angst. Don't know whether I can take. All right, you've put me off already. I don't think I'll bother somehow.
No, sadly, I can't sing.
Who needs a streaming service? That's what I say. Love it. Oh, I'm very excited about him.
OK, Alison
Now.
says, my kids are a nightmare on a holiday to get ready and pack for. The oldest is 13, the youngest is 9. We have a trip tomorrow to see my mum and dad in Ulverston, and I'm dreading...
Ulverston?
Ulverston? Where's Ulverston?
Oh, Ulverston. It's up where... It's my neck of the woods where Stan Laurel was born.
Is that right? Well, anyway, Alison says, I'm dreading the car journey if we get delayed.
Oh, you'll be fine in Ulverston, and don't forget you can go to the Laurel and Hardy Museum, the only one in the world.
Is that right? Oh, you font of all knowledge. Fred says, I've recently bought a new car and it makes all the difference on a long trip. I've set up an iPad for my son and me and the wife just listen to Fleetwood Mac. It makes the time fly by. You should be listening to GB News.
Yes, you should.
On your DAB+.
Never mind your Fleetwood
Or your
Mac
app.
nonsense. Now, if you're looking to move home this summer and you fancy living by the coast, bad news, I'm afraid.
You could be priced right out of the market because recent data shows that the average price of a home by the sea has jumped up by more than £22,000 in 2 years.
Yeah, the biggest jump, well, no surprise if you know the area, Sandbanks in Dorset, or Poole, basically.
Yeah.
The average price has jumped to a stunning £929,000. Let's talk...
That's the average price.
Average price. So there's Jack Blows, Director of Coastal Homes, and Freddie Poser, Deputy Director of Priced Out. Freddie, let's start with you. This is not good news then as far as you're concerned.
No, absolutely not. Younger people in these areas who want to live and work are being completely priced out of the market, as you say. You know, £900,000 is completely out of the range for almost everybody in this country, but especially young people. And it doesn't seem like there's an end in sight to the crisis.
And as I say, it's not just young people looking at it, how are we ever going to get in the housing market? You're just not going to be able to get a nice house by the sea anymore, are you? Unless you're very, very rich.
Absolutely. I mean, these communities are becoming sort of exclaves for people who can afford them, and that is going to become a very exclusive community, and most of us are never going to get a look in.
No, look, Jack. I mean, it's depressing news for anyone who's trying to get on the housing market in those areas. But I mean, from a seller's perspective, great news. I mean, I think you cover the sort of the Leigh-on-Sea South End area, don't you?
That's right. Essex, specifically. Yeah, obviously, sellers are very happy. Prices in Leigh over the last year are up about 5%. So 20,000 is a rough, good start point. Although prices, average prices there are a bit different. Average price of a semi is about 450. So I can't speak to the other areas of coastal areas of Essex.
Still a lot of money. When the average house price in the UK has gone up anyway, but it's about 270, isn't it? That sort of figure. So it's still a lot more.
Yeah, still considerably more. Fortunately, there are other areas in and around Essex and Leigh-on-Sea that are a bit more affordable, but COVID, I think, has...
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Is it COVID? Because, I mean, people have always wanted a home by the sea, haven't they? Actually, on the seafront or something has always been popular. Right. But this rise has happened at the same time as COVID. And that must be, surely, because people value being able to look out the window more, actually staying at home.
Yeah, there's a chance
not working from home.
Yeah, it's, so some of the criteria that's changed now is people even looking for bike storage. They just want some more space. They're bigger homes. They're swapping out the city life for something near the coast. Flats and whatnot in central locations aren't as desirable anymore. And accompanied with the sort of working from home, gives people the flexibility now to sort of live by the coast.
I guess it does. Look, I mean, Freddie, is part of this driven, do you think, by the sort of posh lot moving in, those with plenty of cash actually pricing people out?
So a lot of it is to do with either people moving out of cities or second homes, but deep down, as with the housing crisis across the country, the issue is we haven't built enough homes. There's a really high demand for these properties. We haven't built new ones on the requisite scale for decades. So, you know, you put two and two together and you get these massive price rises. It turns out that after COVID, we saw, you know, big demand in these areas, but it was no surprise that prices were going to continue to rise when we haven't built the homes we need up and down the country for years.
I always think that the experts always say the economy is doing well when house prices rise. I never quite see it that way because it's very, very expensive just trying to put a roof over your head.
Absolutely. So if you're lucky enough to own a home, your wealth on your wealth on paper does rise. But actually, for those of us who are renting or looking to move, it's not necessarily a good thing. And it can also hamper the productivity of the real economy if house prices are so high that you can't afford to live in these most productive areas of the country. So I'd say it's not a good thing that we keep having these massive price rises in coastal areas or elsewhere.
OK. Look, Freddie Poser and Jack Blows, thank you both very much indeed. Good to get your perspective on that one.
I met somebody on holiday who had been left a sort of fisherman's cottage in Cornwall by his mum. His mum had inherited it, I think, from her parents. So they probably paid absolutely almost nothing for it about half a century ago, and he's inherited it now, and it's worth several million because it just absolutely... It's just a little fisherman's cottage, but it's on the beach almost. It looks absolutely fantastic. And have you seen the price of beach huts?
No.
In places like Bournemouth seafront, they still have those lovely beach huts, but they're going for something like £200,000. And they can't even be properly plumbed in. You're not allowed to have plumbing.
I've got one with a coat of paint.
Yeah, but it's on the beachfront.
Oh, crackers.
Well, I've got one in Brighton. You certainly pay for it when you get the weathering.
You've got one?
Yeah, I've got one in Brighton. Yeah, so, yeah.
You own it?
Yeah. But it's not a beach hut. No, it's a two-bedroom apartment.
Yeah.
But you do get the weathering on the front of the building, and you have to pay. There are insurance costs to pay on that as well. It's not as easy as everyone thinks.
Salt.
Oh, that's the problem. Yeah, and it's only 13 years old, and you have to deal with it, and it affects your car as well. So it's very difficult to maintain. It's not as easy as looking at profit and loss and thinking, you get this amount, and if you spend that amount, there are other extraneous costs that you wouldn't get with an inner-city property.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Still, it must be wonderful to sit and look at the sea.
No, not when it's rented out, it's not. No, I can't.
I see.
The landlord.
Stephanie's here as well.
Oh, my God, you've got to be a celebrity.
I would love a property by the sea. I think that's the dream for most people.
What is there about looking at the sea that is so good for us?
But that's why we all go there on holiday.
I know, it's calming, the air, everything relaxing. Oh, I see myself just sitting by the sea one day.
Back in the olden days, they used to the doctors used to prescribe a seaside holiday.
That's true, they did.
But they also used to prescribe sausages as well, didn't they? The medical advice has changed over the years.
But nevertheless, there is something very healing about looking at the seafront and watching the sea, watching the boats go past.
I think we could get it on the NHS.
If only. That would be a very good idea.
That would be nice.
Maybe not. Maybe not. Look, what's happening in terms of a bit of showbiz stuff Stephanie, this morning?
One of my favourite stories that I was reading last night is Peaky Blinders star Cillian Murphy.
Oh, yeah.
He said that he moved his family back to Ireland because his 2 children were developing posh English accents. And he was like, he doesn't want that to happen, so he moved them back to Ireland with his wife as well. And
his wife's Irish as well?
Yeah, his wife's Irish, and obviously for them to be closer to home. But I found it quite interesting because I was just like, that kind of pride people have about accents and how people always try to be more posh. And I like that he's done the opposite and said, no, actually, I want them to have authentic Irish accents.
Well, you can't beat a bit of Irish drawl, can you?
No, it's beautiful.
Very attractive.
There is nothing more sexy, I think, than an intelligent Irishman.
Big difference between Northern Irish accent and Dublin accent, though.
Oh, yeah.
There is.
Considering it's only an hour up the motorway.
Yeah.
Now, what's happening sports-wise? Because we've already had Joe emailing in, saying he's on his way down to London for the FA Cup game, and the roads aren't too bad at the moment, but he's a bit worried about when he comes south of Birmingham, it might get worse.
Yeah, that's quite possible. I mean, it's obviously a big Easter weekend anyway. The FA warned about this 3:30 this afternoon. So it's very difficult. This is happening. This is not the first time it happened. I remember it happening back in 2009. 2 Northwest clubs, Everton and Man United, were playing on a Sunday, and there were no trains. There were no direct trains coming from Liverpool or Manchester today, or this weekend, in fact, to Euston. There'd been coaches laid on. But the FA have known about this for months. They knew when the FA Cup was going to be. Network Rail told them that there were going to be planned engineering works. So it would have been sensible, and the clubs were interested in this, to just move it elsewhere, to move it to somewhere.
Yes, it would have been.
Maybe even move it to Cardiff or somewhere, you know. I mean, it could be big stadium, one of the other ones. But anyway, it is what it is. It's the third, or I think it's the fourth out of 4 games that Man City and Liverpool have got to shape their season. So they've already played each other last weekend, the big league game. They've got the FA Cup semi-final today. They had Champions League commitments as well in the last week or so. This is probably the least important of the 4 games in terms of their priorities. This is probably the trophy they least want to win, but there's a huge incentive.
I mean, what a fabulous day out. Lovely football.
It's going to be exciting.
You can go.
Do you think it's going to
be sunny?
Yeah, I mean, one thing about
Saturday.
One thing about Wembley is that the size, the sheer vastness of the stadium means that there are more tickets available. I was at Man City 10 days ago, and they were advertising at half-time saying there were still tickets available. So the travel chaos was obviously in their mind before then, because normally there wouldn't be tickets available.
Who do you think is going to win, Aidan?
I think Liverpool will take this one in extra time. I'll tell you why, because Man City had a gruelling trip to Spain this week, and they were hammered on the pitch. They were physically attacked all over the place. They came through it, and they were lead to get to the Champions League semi-final, but it comes at a cost. 2 injuries as well today, Kevin De Bruyne and Kyle Walker. I think they'll sacrifice this one today. See Liverpool winning today.
Talking of sporting matters,
Yeah.
the Invictus Games kicked.
It's long. Harry's very passionate about the Invictus Games. So Harry and Meghan will be doing a speech. I wonder what they're going to be talking about. I guess it's going to be something quite positive and motivational for people who are going to be participating. Yesterday, I think they met with the Ukrainian team as well, which would be quite interesting to see how they perform in this. But Meghan's going to be there till Monday, but Harry will be there for the full Hulk.
Is it quite unusual that we're going to see her speak alongside Harry? I mean, I know we do hear her speak, but it's. I mean, this was his thing, wasn't it? The fact that she's now they're doing it as a pair.
I don't think it is actually, because I think, you know, Harry and Meghan know the world's watching whatever they do, and Meghan as well. If she doesn't speak, people are going to be like, she didn't speak. So I think they have to put on this joint appearance of a teamwork, which they are, and so I think it will be good for her to talk about. It will just be interesting to see what she says.
I wonder if they'll mention the war.
Yeah, they will. They will.
Well,
have to,
Don't mention the war.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, they're speaking to, veterans of wars. So I don't know. There'll be something they'll say. But also, it's got to be timely because they're being filmed by a Netflix crew to make this documentary. It's going to be a very big part of that. So anything they do say is going to get massive coverage, isn't it?
Hopefully they get it right.
Yeah, well, let's hope so. Cricket, Joe Root. That's it.
Yeah, I know. I was always uncomfortable with the idea of him being removed. He was such an outstanding batsman, and he still is. He's still one of the top 2 or 3 batsmen in the world. And I always thought, well, is it fair to blame England's demise on the only guy who was actually doing his job properly? Thing is, as Monty Panesar explained the last hour, there's a big difference between. It's important we separate the difference between playing and captaincy. It's 2 separate things. Captaincy in cricket is a completely different ballgame to in football or in rugby or indeed any other sport. You select the players, you carry the burden from near enough everything. You can't hide in the way that other players can't. Now, the problem England have is that the reason the number of successors is still on the ground is because there's nobody else in the team apart from Ben Stokes who you'd think, well, he's going to be around for a little while. You want a captain, you want to be somebody who can at least do 2-3 years. There's nobody good enough in that team to think, are they going to be around in the next few months or so? So a difficult time. The ECB are still appointing key committee roles as well, so the captaincy appointment can't be made for a little while just yet. Right. It's in a state of disarray.
Oh, well, we'll watch it very closely. Look, Aidan, Stephanie, thank you both very much indeed.
Happy Easter Saturday.
Yes, happy Easter. Thank you very much indeed.
Have a lovely, lovely day.
That is it from us. Esther and Philip are up next with the Saturday selection. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 6.
Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking cloudy, misty and murky at first in the west, dry and bright elsewhere. Let's take a look at the details. Southwest England will start the day with low cloud, mist, fog and possibly some drizzle at times, although this will tend to turn back to the coasts through the morning. In contrast, the southeast of England will start the day dry and bright with plenty of sunshine on offer for all. Wales will also have a rather cloudy start, particularly near the coast where patchy mist, fog or drizzle is possible, drier and brighter inland. In the Midlands, cloud will also bring hill fog and the odd spot of rain over the higher ground to the north of the central belt, but there will also be some sunny spells. It'll be rather cloudy in the northwest and northeast of England too. It'll also brighten up though through the morning. Scotland will see similar conditions to the rest of the country, with temperatures reaching 16 degrees by midday. Northern Ireland will also have a cloudy, misty and rather murky start to the day, especially near eastern coasts. However, it will steadily brighten up here through the morning. And that's your forecast for your Easter Saturday.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and